No, we have not started the program. Orpita, we have not started the program.
Okay, sir. Sir, when it will start?
Actually, Dr. Rakesh Kumar is joining. When he will join, and immediately we will start the program.
Okay, sir. Okay.
Hello, good evening. Rakesh Kumar here. I just joined. There was some difficulty in joining.
Yes, uh, we are
I'm here now.
we are very happy to have Dr. Rakesh Kumar, the director NERI, and I hope it will be a very remarkable session. Dr. Rakesh Kumar took charge as director CSIR NERI in May 2016. He completed his MTech in Environmental Science and Engineering from IIT Bombay and completed his PhD in Environmental Engineering in CSIR NERI through RTM Nagpur University. He has significant contribution in the field of environmental science and engineering, which has wide spectrum such as air pollution control and management, water and wastewater treatment, hazardous and municipal waste management, environmental impact assessment and environmental audit, modeling, health and climate change, urban environment management is another area where numerous works related to carrying capacity, urban heat island effect, waste management, and water sector analysis have been carried out. His special abilities has been to bridge the gap of laboratory to field, leading to science being used for the society. He is a recipient of many awards. Some notable ones are Commonwealth Commission Award UK 1994, Environmental Leadership Award by US Asia Environmental Partnership, and USAID for the 2005 for outstanding contribution in improving the quality of life for the population of Asia. He has been awarded for the largest number of technology transfer for low-cost waste water treatment phytoroid in the year 2012. He received VASFIC Award for 2012 for his exemplary work for urban environment improvement and sustainable technology for better environment. He has been awarded Hiyoshi Think of Ecology Award in September 2015 for his work on use of ecology in solving environmental engineering problems. Trans-Asia Chamber of Commerce for Industries for Environmental Protection 2007, Mumbai Green Hero 2019, and IDSE Award for Best Environmental Institution for Exemplary Environment Protection Work 2020. Dr. Rakesh Kumar has 12 patents on pollution control devices. In October 2018, the Honorable Minister, Dr. Harshavardhan, Ministry of Science and Technology, Ministry of Environment, Forest and Climate Change, and Ministry of Earth Sciences has launched an air pollution device designed by Dr. Kumar and his team, Vayu to help control outdoor air pollution. He has published more than 100 papers in national and international journals and many national and international conferences. He has authored 3 self-learning books on various topics on environmental science and engineering, one of them by for Commonwealth of Learning Canada. He has membership of many professional societies and is providing advisory as chairman and member of various national committees in MOEF and CPCB, BIS, MDWS, MPCB, and many other government institutions, and also for the court and National Green Tribunal matters. And he is also worked on various assignments with many international agencies. And we are very happy to get such an exemplary speaker. Dr. Kumar, please switch on your video. People should see you. Please switch on your video, sir.
I think,
And here is your good friend, Biswas. Biswas, please come here. This side.
Namaskar. Namaste, namaste. Namaskar.
Namaste. How are you?
We are all very good. Thank you. I was struggling with connecting. It took a little bit time. So my apologies for that.
No, it's all right, man. It's all right. So I
Nice of you.
Dr. Kumar to start his presentation. We are
Okay.
eagerly waiting for that.
So am I audible enough as such?
It's quite audible.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. So I'll share my screen and then I'll straight away go on the topic that we are discussing. Just
Yes.
one second. Can you see the screen?
Oh, surely. Surely. This is a multi-view view. Yes.
Yes. Okay.
Yes. This is the topic. Climate-linked resilient cities developmental planning.
Right. So thank you, Swamiji, and my good old friend, senior and friend both, Biswas ji, and all the colleagues and everyone else who has joined. Thank you very much for two things. One is that the belief that I'll be able to give you a good lecture. That is one. And the second thing is for getting me into this conversation, which is very, very important for our country, which we should be discussing not only one day, today, but all the time. And that is what will take us far. Many of you who do not know, NIRI is based out of Nagpur. That's where head office is. But it's also there in Mumbai, Delhi, Kolkata, Hyderabad, and Chennai. Earlier, we had 4 other regional centers, but that got assimilated over a period of time. So NIRI is an organization which got started in 1958 because of water and water-related issues. There was an outbreak of jaundice, and because of that jaundice, people felt that we should have a research institution on water and sanitation. So that is the reason why we have been here. And NIRI is also an institution where you have people from different disciplines, starting from all sciences to all engineering. They're all in one single platform, single place. And we take pride in solving problems rather than only pointing out all the problems. So today I'll be speaking on climate-linked resilient cities. It has multiple components. Please bear with me. If you have some questions, we can take it later. But the whole idea that how do we make our cities compared to the cities which are there in the US and Europe, our cities are actually combined with different kind of context. And once we understand that, we'll know how to do it. So the broad question which comes is, are cities opportunities or crisis? A lot of people will tell you that major GDP of any country actually comes from cities, and that is also true in India to a larger extent. But it is also looking like that it may be creating crisis over a period of time if we are not handling them in the right way. So some of the basic questions that we thought we need to answer in this conversation: is there an urban environmental crisis, and whose environment we are talking about? Normally, when we say environmental crisis, we talk about environment which is linked to human being. But what about all biodiversity, the creatures, flora, fauna? What is their stake? Then what is the nature and extent of urban environmental degradation? what are the underlying causes, why it happens, and from where it gets caused, and then what are the options which can be tried to improve the urban environment health, and how to choose those implementation options and why we should choose them in a particular way. So if you look at in terms of growth rate of urban agglomeration across the world, all the green ones are growing at less than 1%, yellow ones are 1 to 3%, brown ones, or I would say orange ones, 3 to 5%, and red ones are 5% and above. What you see here in India, most of it is growing in the range of about 1 to 3, and many places in the range of 3 to 5%. And when this is being done, the challenge is going to become more and more as we talk about cities. So when we look at our own cities, starting from 1990, when we had the red one is cities with more than 10 million population. In 1990, we had only 2 cities. Now in 2018-19, we have already 5 cities, and by 2030, we will have 7 cities in this category. What the real growth is taking place at the bottom. The one which are 40 cities are becoming 71 and is becoming 94, and many of these ones which are into 3 lakhs to 5 lakhs population are going into 5 lakhs to 1 million population. So our rate of growth has been of high significance if you look at urban population and also rural populations together. Now, let's look at the share of GDP percent. So when you look at all of the cities across the world, most of them cities actually give you a lot of GDP, and that GDP is what makes your life comfortable. That's the formula. And there are some people who complain about GDP calculation also, but I'll not go into details of that. But what comes out Mumbai as one of the major city which gives significant amount of GDP, still is a smaller percent when you compare with many other cities in the world. So if we have to become a cities of repute and which will contribute high GDP over a period of time, we will have to do much more than what we are doing today. So when we look at urban environment, we have variable pressure attributes. So one, of course, is population, poverty, economic activity. Whenever we do, we have waste and emissions, air pollution, water pollution, resource use and degradation, and climate change linked disasters. When you have sudden flood situation, sudden drought situation, or I would say cyclonic issues, all of that are basically pressure attributes. And of course, in recent times, NGOs, NPOs, and judiciary, which are putting a lot of pressures. The other ones are relating to how do we succeed, and how do we succeed in a particular way, and we may fail if we don't do it the right way. So if our awareness is good, chances are that we'll take action and will improve. If our regulation pricing policies are right, chances of success is high. Property rights and land use definition, if it is given, then success is high. And while doing all of these things, if we have any institutional failures, we would have huge failure, which will not be easy to bring it back. And that's why it's very important to make our cities resilient, that any small attributes changes should not make our cities fail. And that's the word resilience comes in. So when we look at climate change as a parameter, we know in recent times you have Bangalore, which used to never get flooded, is getting flooded. Hyderabad, very rarely heard of flooding. And this is Mumbai, which used to flood once in 10 years, 12 years. Now it almost every year or every 2 years, the flooding is very, very severe. So why it happens is you have, of course, high intensity rainfall, which in coastal cities it is combined with tides, inadequate drainage system design, improper waste management, surface flooding, and of course encroachment in the floodplains, which leads to further flooding situation, which gets more and more serious as we go ahead. So what all happens when these situations arise? We have failure of infrastructure, like transport system breaks down. Buildings can actually be in deep trouble if they're not built the right way. All the utilities such as power and water supply gets damaged. Hospitals, schools, and offices, these are the ones which give you support during crisis, and they are the ones which will start having problems because of these issues. And the last one, which is the most critical one, is supply chain mechanism. So if I want to send some medicine, I want to send some food, I want to send some clothing, I can't actually do that because the crisis is serious, and also our supply chain is completely broken. So roadways and other infrastructure which is supposed to be supplying, they get broken. Besides that, which impacts human being, we also have ecosystem damages. So it completely, some of these will actually change the way species live and they interact. It will actually change the timing of biological events and some of the things which are happening, which we will not be able to notice in short period of time. Later on, we'll realize that these timings are changing, and which will create a lot of problems. Just to give you an example, that earlier the malaria window in certain Himalayan states used to be hardly about a month, but that has actually expanded now to about 2 months to 2.5 months to 3 months. That is, there's something happening. Of course, it changes, transforms ecosystems in food waves. And when all of these happens, it will lead to wildfires, floods, and drought. And of course, species extinction will take place. In addition to that, when we look at effect of climate change on air and water quality, which is directly linked with what we do, it will lead to human health impact. It will lead to increase in allergens, which will be there in air, and it will start giving us health issues, increase in ozone. And whenever that kind of thing happens, we will have very intense downpours. And depending upon how situation is in certain areas, we will have droughts. And and when the water temperature high take place, you will have high evaporation and will not have enough water to drink. And obviously, when all of these happens, we will have also waterborne illnesses. All of these things together will need to increase diseases. So infectious diseases occurrence will go on increasing. So if I look at this health impact, all of these can happen. So global warming, extreme weather phenomena, darker winters, slippery conditions, increasing precipitation, and hot weather will lead to all kind of things. So you will have water-related diseases. We will have darker winters, meaning depression-related things. We will have extreme weather phenomena where we'll have accidents and decrease in services and vector-borne diseases. So what actually happens is we will have large set of data which is coming out with all kind of symptoms, and only air pollution will lead to major respiratory symptoms and create issues for all of us. In addition to that, microclimate changes takes place. One is macro, when we say in the region of whole of India, so that's macro, or even part of the region, coastal region of India, or say Rajasthan, arid regions of India, or the Himalayan regions of India. So they are bigger in terms of sizes. But what also happens is the small areas, we will have a significant increase or decrease in temperature, which will actually start looking at our comfort factor for staying in cities, which will be a problem. So one of the study which IIT Gandhinagar did, where they found that 80% of urban areas, so typical urban heat island, and where the temperature is 1 to 6 degrees warmer than the surrounding non-urban areas. So normally when we talk about climate change, we are talking about over average temperature rise of 1 degree and 1.5 degree, right? But here, if our urban climate is not properly maintained or not designed the right way, the temperature rise can be 1 to 6 degrees. Some of the other work that we have done, these temperatures can go as high as even 10 degrees centigrade. So when we look at urban microclimate, when you have trees around, you will have this kind of the heat which gets absorbed. Some heat gets absorbed and gets retained. Some plant transpiration takes place, and some other thing, water, when the water falls, it goes below. But when we have city which is built like this, we will have a very different phenomena. So we will have more of evaporation or losses and very little water going down. So if you see this exercise which were done by urban heat island studies for area in and around Mumbai region, you can see that Kolegaon, which is 4, is here. It's in rural areas. In a same season, on the same day, temperature was 29.7, but in Kurla region, which is 1 here, which is highly built in Mumbai, the temperature was 35.33. So almost 5 to 6 degree temperature increase you can actually see within the same region. We don't have to go too far. We don't have to cross countries. We can actually see it in this area. So when we do all of that, we will have high mortality. So it could be due to heat, it could be flooding, it could be anything, vector-borne diseases. And these are the numbers now which have started coming in. Now the data which is telling us that we would have very high deaths annually on this basis. And as we go, there are some estimates which are being done from 2030 to 2050. It will lead to 250,000 additional deaths per year, and that's very significant. So these are of course computer models, but it is important to notice that all these models which are being talked about are now being validated for current times. So something which was there for 1970 is now happening in the year 2000, 2010, and 2020. So some of these data points are now becoming more and more valid and more apparent. So what is the limit when we want to do some certain things which we do on our own as an individual or as a community? So when we look at this two concept, assimilative and supportive capacity, assimilative capacity means anything as a human being. When we do, we create air pollution, we create water pollution and solid waste or soil related thing. Nature has its own tendency of assimilating it and making it proper. Supportive capacity is what the resources that we take from the nature. And when these two are matching, or when these two are in balanced condition, these will actually start changing, and that change will happen only because of climate change and related high pollutant discharges, which are exceeding the environmental limits. So when we look at this, dilute and disperse in certain cases, yes, but if your assimilative capacity goes on getting into serious trouble, you would have situation where whatever we may do, our rivers would continue to be polluted, even if we are treating to tertiary level. And if our BOD is in the range of 10, my river will be flowing with 10 BOD, which is not what we want. Our BOD limits are less than 3, and that's not going to happen in normal way. So should we plan, and how do we do it? So in broader sense, if you take territorial perspectives, not cities, because cities are very small domain of things, but cities and in and around areas can be taken as a territorial areas, and then these planned city or city area can be actually developed like a sustainable development paradigm and start making plans as per that. We should do resource accounting and start doing management. Of course, strategic mitigating measures for climate change. There are various things which can be done. Urban mobility and public transport is one of the key things for doing all of these. And as I said, we should improve assimilative capacity as well as carrying capacity. So when I do this for healthy, sustainable cities, I will have to manage air and noise. I'll have to manage climate change and extreme weather, urban heat island, urban vegetation, water and soil, energy and transport. So all of these things together, they when they come and start working in a positive way, chances are that will survive. So what is it that what we call it resilient city? So I just said in the beginning, resilient actually refers to ability of any urban system to withstand and to recover quickly from multiple shocks and stresses and maintain continuity of services. That is one definition. There could be multiple definitions depending upon what we want to see out of this. But as we can see here, United Nations Habitat has made this framework where we start saying identify vulnerabilities, risk and impact, formulate adaptation options, assess and prioritize those options, implement measures, monitor and evaluate those effectiveness, and finally review them again and go on into a circles. So it's very important that when we talk about climate resilience services, for each of the parameter, we must do a risk assessment, create awareness, do adaptation, look at resource efficiency, and then keep doing this adaptation planning and going back. Because if we don't monitor our progress, we are likely to fail, and that failure will be known only after 10 years, 15 years. So in this case, we can't be doing that. We need to keep reviewing our goal post every year, and then readjusting our goals. So key challenges, if I have to say, for urban areas, traffic jams and vehicular pollution, poor urban infrastructure, heat island effect, waste handling, housing, which is a very critical, healthcare facilities, air pollution, and heat waves in summer. So for each of these, what is that we can do? Intelligent transportation systems, use of mass rapid transit systems, and carpooling. Mass rapid transit, basically it means it could be point A to B, big buses which can be run, or or even trains can be run, like metro and all that. Work from home, which we discovered during pandemic, but everything cannot be done from work from home. But as many things that we can do from work from home should be done. And look at the circular economy, which India is to be the leader, but suddenly we find that in last few decades we forgot what is circular economy, and we are now learning from the Western country that please adopt circular economy. It is very important to note here that India has the largest number of green building in the world as of now, and that's only because our environmental laws and policies have forced many of the builders and many of the, I would say, so-called good developers to work out details in which green buildings have been constructed. Similarly, the other key challenge, if you see on the left-hand side, sewage infrastructure, sanitation, hygiene in public places, selection of suitable site for solid waste, and health hazard of wreck, because we need to start thinking in a very different way. And I'm glad there are some lectures after mine where we are talking about good tailored sewage conveyance and treatment systems, retrofitting existing sewerage infrastructure as per current requirement. Most of our cities are in decaying stage. The infrastructure of sewerage and sewer planning is in poor state, so they need to be refurbished. And look at reduce, reuse, recycle, which we all know in terms of waste, and use IoT for smart controls, because unless until we do that for a population like ours, we will not be able to do a good job. So when we look at climate resilient strategy in some other countries, although US has not been signing say Paris Treaty, but if you go around and find out, many cities in the United States have they started talking about climate change and idea of improving resilience of the cities, and that's happening across many places. So one of the city like Pittsburgh has already made this, they call it Pittsburgh resilience strategy, in which they put this idea called P4. So people, planet, place, and performance. So people meaning all those people who are going to live in the city. They need to be connected. They need to celebrate diversity. They need to be supportive to each other. And for there is a structure. When we go to place, where with this whatever place that we create, we should be looking at connectivity, ecological health. Also look at future risk if we are doing anything. And there's written as a policy that we will design, scale, and maintain our infrastructure of current and future needs, providing benefits and services to our neighborhood during times of calm and crisis, both calm and crisis. So similarly, so planet related thing, whatever we can do for reducing carbon footprint, and then keep working all the time and measuring your performance, improve planning and decision making, so that this whole resilience objectives are taken care of as we go ahead. So these all P4 that you saw has been further explained. So in people, all of these parameters like housing, health, food, safety, education, emergency preparedness, resilience, household, workforce, diversity comes in, and performance, entrepreneurship, seeking civic engagement measurements. Similarly, on place and planet, they have been detailed out. So we as a group of people will need to understand each and every aspect here, and then do granulation of ideas and plans, which who will implement, how it will get implemented, who will give money, from where the money will come, how long will it last, whether it's sustainable or not. All of that has to be worked out for each of the parameter that you see here. There are some other groups which have also worked out, like United Nations has worked out on the similar ideas. They call it adaptation process, where you say assess impacts, vulnerability and risk, plan, implement, monitor and evaluate, which you saw earlier also. So for each of these steps, they have defined it. How do you do it? Initial assessment should be done, identify adaptation activities, implement those, and then monitor for future adaptation processes so that it's successful. Similar examples one can take from Australia. They call it National Climate Resilient and Adaptation Strategy. And the national framework again talks about cooperative action between Australia's national and sub-national governments. Basically, community coming together and talking about climate change impacts and adaptation options. The framework also has adaptation information and tools needed by decision makers, because sometimes decision makers don't know what needs to be done. So people who are from academics and research institutions can actually work together with public and create that framework and share with decision makers. This framework in Australia, they have called it National Adaptation Understanding and Capacity Building, identify, reduce the vulnerability of multiple sectors. And each of these are identified as challenges. And for each of these challenges, community consultation and collaboration takes place. Similarly, European Union has done that. If you see very carefully, I'll not read out all of them, but what is important here to understand is that the whole idea which we discussed for in the beginning, then we saw the example of Pittsburgh, we saw the example of United Nations, we saw the examples of Australia, and on the similar thing, you see all of these are also written for European Union. So these are the action 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So at the end, if you see, it is talking about ensuring more resilient infrastructure, promoting insurance and other financial products for resilient investment and business decisions. So unless until you have money flowing in for each of the activity that we're talking about, it's not going to be sustainable. And that's very, very important. So what is happening in India? So when you look at all of these, so there's a whole lot of things here. So these are too fine for you to read. But in a broader way, if you see, India has started making climate resilient city action plan. It has 9-step processes, which comes in 3 phases, which is analyze, act, and accelerate. Some of the 4 capacities, building capacities, cities which have been used, and they have started doing this work in Udaipur, Siliguri, Coimbatore, and Rajkot. And all of these have been further, I would say, detailed out, in which it says that if you do all of the activity as CRCAP, it will lead to so many tons of CO2 equivalent greenhouse gas emission reduction by 2022-23. Same thing for like 39 to 51 tons of CO2 for Rajkot. 150,000 for Siliguri by 2022-23. What actually it says is that if we adopt some of the measures which are selected, chances are our cities are going to become more and more resilient. Similarly, other work that is being done is there's a program called Asian Cities Climate Change Resilient Network. It is working in other 4 cities like Surat, Pune, Cochin, and Ludhiana. And in each of these, we have resource related issues which are being discussed, economic robustness being looked at, economic development, climate change adaptation, and role of local and especially diverse processes which are linked to the health finally. But what is actually happening is that many of you who are in the climate modeling domain, if there are some people, we find that when we do this calculation, there's very wide variation in the results of climate models. So what is important is that we need to now bring these climate models and what you call it scaled down to a level that everyone can do it for their own areas, own regions. So it becomes much more easier for people to understand and take necessary action. So what are the ways cities can build more climate resilient neighborhoods? One is, I'm just giving some examples. One is tailor early warning system to meet the needs of vulnerable people. Like you can announce that if there is a cyclone coming, or flooding is likely to happen, or some infrastructure related damages can happen, then in that case early warning system will be helpful. Map all the city services and access to amenities, and also have alternatives, that if something goes wrong here, how they will be able to get the other services in this case. Build long-term resilient for infrastructure and planning. So when I say this, I'm talking about groundwater related infrastructure, surface water which is there on the surface, sewer lines, stormwater lines. All of these things together are to be put into long-term resilience framework. And then, as I said in the beginning, that unless until we have culture which is supporting all of these above, we will not be able to survive. So social sciences and the people from those who understand social and cultural issues, they need to be also partner in this whole process. So resilience cannot come only on technology. It will come because of both things are coming together. So when I talk about climate resilience, there are few things like manage flooding, prepare for drought, reduce urban heat island, for which there are various means it can be done. Lower building energy demands by way of making green buildings or making so-called traditional buildings so that your energy demand is lower. Spend less energy for managing water so that you can capture rainwater or recycle wastewater so that demand on water is less and less. And of course protect coastal areas with buffers, wetlands and dunes in this case. There are some modeling tools and techniques which are used, so I will not go into detail, but what is important here is that while we are doing planning for resilient infrastructure for cities, there are some good models now available, and there could be new models which also can be developed, starting from NVMet, Raman Pro, Minfoam, CFD, WRF Chem or WRF itself, remote sensing, etc. So we have to start using some of the modern tools and techniques which are available now. We also need to start doing future planning and design of infrastructure, looking into what changes will take place in the next 25, 30 years. Use, as I said in previous couple of slides back, that all global climate model need to be downscaled to know that in local area what is going to happen. Otherwise, globally, when we do, the data is not sufficient to take decisions. Socioeconomic scenarios and their representation, as I said earlier, that is very, very important. So these are some examples again. For example, in Chicago, United States, they are doing supporting vertical farms through better zoning. These are details, but what is happening is urban farming can possibly become reality. Mrs. Wang in Canada, they are doing low impact development standards for cleaner drinking water and less flooding. So they create infrastructure so that when rains happen, water actually gets soaked and kept in a single place and it actually goes down. Gibson Canada, they are taking advantage of lower cost and higher resilience of natural systems. So they are preserving the natural system in a way that they can last forever. St. Paul is another city, Minnesota. St. Paul is Twin City, it is called. They are establishing new urban ecosystem where the urban areas are being converted largely into natural ecosystems so that biodiversity is also maintained. Iowa is another city which is working on historical data to build robustness if the flooding happens. And all of these are being done by way of retrofitting existing cities. So key conclusions from my talk would be there is an urgent need for climate resilience in built-in planning and development of society. Various approaches have been used, but we should not only be talking about circular economy, but approaches like carrying capacity approaches, green infrastructure development, smart city development, which India has been doing to a greater extent, but it can do more. Urgent need to develop early warning system, as I said, that's the most important aspect, that people should know what is going to happen and how it will happen so that they can take necessary action. Model tools and techniques, as I said, CFD and WRF can be used to mitigate impacts. And knowledge is what actually can tell us a lot of things from ancient architecture as well. So our people in different parts of the country had different kind of architecture, which because they understood what is going on. But what we see now is all structures are being built in a similar way. So we need to relook at this whole system of structures that we are making. And lastly, nature-based and nature-derived tools and techniques should be used, which will actually do the mitigation much better otherwise. So thank you very much, and thank you for having me for this lecture. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Rakesh Kumar, for your excellent presentation. Now I ask our other participant any question or any discussion you can do.
Your voice is too low.
Oh, sure. Yeah,
I couldn't hear.
uh, actually, thank you for your nice presentation. Actually, my two, three questions there in my mind. I will ask
Yeah.
you later. First of all, I request other participants to ask any question to our Dr. Rakesh Kumar about these topics. Any question for Rakesh Kumar for these topics? I may ask many questions. Uh, Climate link resilient cities development planning on this discussion on these topics. He narrate elaborately about this development, how to make the thing properly. So you can ask the question. Orpita Chakraborty, Kunal Banerjee is now in the line. So you can ask the question. Or I may ask one question. One question
No,
to,
sir, I don't have any question.
yes,
I
anyone?
don't have any question, sir.
No question. That's it.
No, sir.
That's okay. No problem. Uh, yeah, first of all, then I ask one question to, not question, this discussion that Dr. Rakesh Kumar, to Dr. How you selected Udaipur, Siliguri, on the basis on the selection of these cities for this climate resilience city action plan. How you select Udaipur and Siliguri and some other organization city, Surat, Pune, Kochi, and Ludhiana. Four cities you are selected for the developmental work. Please.
So, frankly speaking, it is not me who has selected. This has been done through the ministry and other group of people who are doing it. But if you see the spread of these cities, these are very clearly demarcated and designating cities which are in different domain of regions. So you have one city which in far east. Another one is somewhere I would call it upper region like Ludhiana, north, which has extreme weather of cold and heat. Then you also have cities like Rajkot, which is in coastal areas primarily in this area. So basically, people have selected on the basis of their locations, which are different, and
Basis of location.
locations.
Uh,
They are distinctly being can be identified as location which are not similar. That's why you see there are different kind of cities. Frankly speaking, one should do for all cities, but these are pilot projects. That's why they have chosen one in mountain area, one in arid region, one in normal coastal areas, like that. So there's a difference.
now then for Siliguri, you are telling Siliguri it is for location and mountain area. Sikkim or Bhutan, I visited that to place on behalf of the Nili also. There is much more, much more foresty area than Siliguri.
Mhm.
That is my basis. Anyway, you are
Yeah.
telling that is the population.
Dr. Ornav Majumdar has joined, so you can bring him in the interaction.
Oh, Urunabada is also, Professor Mojumdar also is joining.
He has joined already.
Huh?
He has joined already.
Oh, already joined. I request Professor Mojumdar, Arunava Mojumdar, asks to join in our discussion with this Dr. Rakesh Kumar.
Yeah, so thank you. I think there is very quick. I saw one in chat. Somebody asked me urban heat island effect, what it is. If I, some Kumar Gaurav or somebody has asked. Yeah. So actually, urban heat island is that in a small area, if you have a heat generated, but in the region which are outside on the periphery of urban areas, if the temperature is low, and in the urban areas temperature is high, so that is not very healthy, and that's something which is unnatural. Normally it should be same, and that's why it is called urban heat island effect. So if you do Google, you will know more details as you go ahead.
Arunavada, any question, please? Please join in our discussion. Just a minute.
Professor Dr. Rakesh Kumar ji, namaskar, namaskar. So since I have joined just now, so I haven't any question. Only I appreciate that you have joined today in this deliberation. So I strongly consider that your presence would be benefited to all the participants here. I had been to many times to Niri in Nagpur. Yes. So I missed because recently I had not been to Niri Nagpur.
So I invite all of you to visit again to Niri Nagpur
Yes.
when the pandemic levels are acceptable.
Right.
So thank you for having me all. I look forward to further discussion anytime in future. Thank you, Professor Majumdar and
Namaskar,
Swamiji, as well as my friend Dr. Biswas.
Yes, thank you. Thank you, Dr. Rakesh Kumar.
Yeah. Thank
We
you.
will meet. We will meet, and this. I hope this type of interaction will continue. Okay. Thank you very much. Bye bye. I request Dr. Vishesh to introduce Professor Majumdar, because both of you are working together for long years. I don't have the paper. Does he need any paper? I don't think he needs any paper. Professor Majumdar is a director professor of All India Institute of Hygiene and Public Health.
Actually,
okay. Yes, okay. Okay, let me start. Yes.
Professor Arunava Mojumdar graduated from Jadavpur Engineering College. Then he returned as a director, All India Institute of Public Health and Hygiene. This is a strong span of his working zone, and worked with various various um, various field for the development of this our engineering science. Most of the time I am telling him my guru. In Jadavpur University, actually, with him, I worked many times. In after his retirement in the School of Water Resource Engineering, he associate as a emeritus professor. And with him, so many work for this our environmental field. We work together. Is his doctorate from the Jadavpur Engineering College University, our university. We he's
Okay. Okay. Let me start. Okay.
But I have many things to tell about him because from
So
his
yes, yes.
eh,
Okay, let me start. Arun, thank you
okay.
very much.
Then, the, then you start your topics on wastewater management.
Professor Majumdar, please start.
একটু ইয়ে প্রবলেম হলো, দাঁড়ান দাঁড়ান, ওটা আসছি আমি, একটু এক মিনিট, 1 সেকেন্ড, আমি আবার ঢুকে যাচ্ছি, 1 সেকেন্ড, কিছু একটা প্রবলেম।
But you are still visible and everything is nicely.
It is visible.
Yes, yes.
Okay. Let me শেয়ারটা করে নি, আমার বোধহয় শেয়ারটা করা হয়নি।
But we have shared option enabled. We have enabled all the share options.
দাঁড়ান, শেয়ার করতে হবে। শেয়ার করেছেন আপনি? দাঁড়ান, আমি কোথায় গেল? এক মিনিট দাঁড়ান, আমি একটু Can you hear me? No. Hello?
Surely,
Hello?
Professor Majumdar, carry on.
দাঁড়ান, ইয়েটা
না,
আমার
জিনিসটা আসছে না আপনার বস্তুটা আসছে না।
না আমার
হচ্ছে না,
স্লাইডটা আসছে না।
লাইটটা আসছে না, শেয়ার করা যাচ্ছে না দেখছি এখানে। এই আসবে, এবার আসছে।
হ্যাঁ,
শেয়ার ভিডিও, দেখা যাচ্ছে? হ্যালো?
Yes.
ক্যান ইউ সি? দেখা যাচ্ছে?
Yes, carry on.
আচ্ছা, একটু বড় করে দেবো, বড় করে দিচ্ছি একটু।
Excellent. Carry on.
Okay. Good afternoon. On the onset, I express my thanks and gratitude to Vivekananda Institute of Environment and Management and also Faculty of Engineering and Technology, Jadavpur University, for inviting me to deliver a talk on wastewater treatment, recycle and reuse for the internship course being conducted by the institute. In India, sewage generation amounts to around about 61,754 million liters per day, and out of which we have sewage treatment capacity around 23,000 million liter per day. That is estimated to be 37% total. However, a whole amount of this 37 sewage is not getting treated because of malfunctioning of very many sewage treatment units. If we look into the state-wise percentage generation of sewage, according to Central Pollution Control Board, you will find the generation of sewage varies, maybe from 12%, 13% to even 1%, depending upon the size of the states. But if we project this generation, certain state-wise, you will find that 49% of country's sewage is generated from top 5 states like Maharashtra, 8,143 million liter per day, that is 13% of the sewage. Uttar Pradesh, 7,124 million liter per day, that is 12%. Tamil Nadu, 5,599 million liters per day, that is 9%. West Bengal, 4,667 million liter per day sewage generation, 8%. And Gujarat, 4,119 million liter per day. So this is in general 5 states producing 49% of the country's sewage. Installed capacity sewage treatment plants in top 5 states, that is 66% of the country's treatment capacity that we have. So Maharashtra again, 22.16% MLD, that is 5,160 MLD sewage is getting treated. That way Gujarat, 13.16% sewage getting treated. I mean, total India's 13% that way. Delhi, 11.58, that is 2,694 million liter per day. Uttar Pradesh, 11.37%, that is 2,646 million liter per day. Tamil Nadu, 1,800 million liter, that is 7.63%. Now, in this context, I like to mention that wastewater generation is roughly 80% of our water supply. We are using water in different places. Our water supply norm varies from 150 liters per capita per day from mega city metro cities of the country to 55 liters per capita per day, that is in the rural areas. If we have small cities or town having sewerage system, then our supply norm is 135 liters per capita per day. Again, if we have a small towns having no sewerage system, our water supply norm is 70 liters per capita per day. What I like to mention here is that according to our water supply that we are delivering, sewage is generated roughly about 80%. But industrial wastewater is different. We'll be discussing that later, but this is the wastewater generation. Now, again, one thing I like to also mention that most of our cities and towns in this country are not sewered. We have sewerage system in mega city metro cities and certain class 1 towns. Now, this sewerage that we are talking about, this sewerage are connected to sewage treatment plants. But when we look into the non-sewered areas, when we have no underground sewerage system, that means in that area we have on-site sanitation system. We have on-site sanitation system means we have septic tank or 2-pit four-flush toilet or eco-sand toilet, something like that. Now, mostly we'll find septic tank. Now, septic tank is actually treating the black water. The other water, other wastewater coming from kitchen, bathroom, washing clothes, washing utensils, etc., these are known as grey water, that is sewage. And this sewage or the grey water is actually flowing through the surface drain. But this wastewater which is flowing to the surface drain is also carrying the wastewater coming from the septic tank. Now, this wastewater is mostly not getting treated. Now, if we look into the treatment plants, STPs that I have given in this slide, in the STP, we are treating the wastewater. We are adhering to physical test, biological test, biological treatment, sorry. Physical testing, biological testing, treatment again. Now, this treatment, biological treatment, is needed because we have good quantum of organic pollutants. In the sewage, basically, we have organic pollutants and bacterial pollutants, pathogenic loads. Now, the technologies that we adopt may be aerobic, may be anaerobic, but mostly we adhere to aerobic technology, aerobic treatment system. That is activated sludge process. Maybe all of you know about this activated sludge process, where we have primary clarifier or primary sedimentation thing. Okay? But mostly these waste treatment plants are having screen, grid chamber, and then primary sedimentation tank. And then we have the reactor. That is, we are being aeration tank. So after this aeration tank, after this aerobic reactor, we have secondary sedimentation tank or secondary clarifier. And then the wastewater is getting treated and discharged. The sludge is taken out from the clarifiers and then it is treated. Now, this activated sludge process that just I mentioned, there are certain modification of activated sludge process that we are also utilizing. Extended aeration system. Then we are installing even oxidation ditch. We have developed very many other technologies from basic activated sludge processes like fluidized aerobic bed, that is FAB, membrane bioreactor, moving bed bioreactor, sequential batch reactor. Now, when we are talking about aerobic treatment system, we have suspended growth and attached growth system. Attached growth, we sometimes install trickling filter. Then this moving bed bioreactor is also attached growth system. Rotating biological contactor is also another attached growth system. Sometimes we are installing. Another very important treatment system that we are installing, that is waste stabilization pond. That is basically a low-cost, energy-efficient treatment system. Also, we have duckweed pond, etc. Anaerobic treatment that we are designing, installing is UASB, that is upflow anaerobic sludge blanket, anaerobic filters, anaerobic upflow fluidized bed, etc. Recently, we are taking the advantage of another energy efficient treatment system, that is constructed wetland, and this is actually giving a very good result to us. So waste stabilization pond, constructed wetland, again duckweed pond, etc. These are basically energy efficient, low cost, low operation and maintenance cost treatment system, and these are being utilized in the secondary treatment system, tertiary treatment system, like this. Okay. Now, this is the wastewater treatment system where you will find centralized treatment system and decentralized treatment system. In past, mostly we adhere to centralized treatment system. Our experience with respect to centralized treatment system is that it is costly because pipeline cost more, pumping cost more, operation and maintenance cost more, and also various problems in running these waste treatment plants. Many waste treatment plants centralized are not running. In this connection, I like to mention the wastewater treatment plant, sewage treatment plant that were installed in during Ganga Action Phase 1 remaining idle today. These are mostly defunct stage, not functioning, and today Government of India under Namami Gange program giving again fund for renovation, reconstruction of the sewage treatment plant. Even I can give example of Howrah sewage treatment plant. This is not functioning today, and this is need to be dismantled, and new sewage treatment plant will be built shortly. Like that, Srirampur sewage treatment plant, many sewage treatment plant became non-functional stage. Even in Noapara sewage treatment plant, that is Baranagar, Baranagar and Kamarhati sewage treatment plant, that is not also functioning. Now, therefore, we are now considering a decentralized treatment system. Advantages. We may have zones in a city, different 3, 4, 5 zones, and for each zone we can have decentralized sewerage as well as sewage treatment system. Advantage is it's a compact system. Advantage, you can do it partly. Advantage, less pumping cost, minimum pipeline cost, as well as we can achieve effective maintenance out of that. So decentralized treatment system is considered to be very good option for the cities and towns. We do consider, and you have options with respect to different treatment system also with respect to same city. This is the sewage treatment plant where you will find that we have a pre-treatment system, we have primary treatment, then secondary, and then we will have a tertiary. Now, in this connection, I like to mention that normally we do the pre-treatment, primary treatment, and secondary treatment. According to the old standard, our BOD limit, I mean BOD should not be more than 30 milligram per liter. It was the standard as per Ministry of Environment and Forest, Government of India. CPCB was also following. We, the local urban bodies, we are also adhering to that standard. 30 milligram per liter, BOD 250 milligram per liter, suspended solids 100 milligram per liter, like that. Now, the situation has changed. Situation has changed because of very many reasons of Ganga pollution, Jamuna river pollution, etc. And we found that for Jamuna river pollution control, the limit of treated sewage came down to 20 milligram per liter BOD, like that. Now, recently means in 2019, Honorable National Green Tribunal has modified the standard, and it has said that the pH of the treated effluent should be between 5.5 and 9, and then BOD should not be more than 10 milligram per liter. Suspended solids in the treated effluent should not be more than 20 milligram per liter. COD should not be more than 50 milligram per liter. Total nitrogen should not be more than 10 milligram per liter. Then phosphorus should not be more than 1 milligram per liter. And the total coliform, fecal coliform should not be more than 100 per 100 milliliter. Desirable and permissible limit is 230 per 100 milliliter. So therefore, you can understand the stringent regulation that has been made. In this context, I'd like to mention that why the standards are getting changed and becoming stringent like that. The reason is that the river ecological flow is decreasing. We are not getting adequate flow in the river. Even river Ganga is not having adequate flow. And according to the theme of actually what is the objective of Namami Ganga? Nirmal Dhara and Abiral Dhara. That means we want clean river, yes, but also we want to have Abiral Dhara in the river. That means we want to have ecological flow. Now, since this flow is getting reduced, dilution is also getting reduced. Earlier, it was 30 milligram per liter, considering that there will be 1:10 dilution in the river. And so river BOD should not be more than 3 milligram per liter as per category C of the river. That means if it is within 3 milligram per liter and all other parameters are suitable, then this water can be utilized for drinking after conventional treatment. Say river Ganga water. The Calcutta metropolitan area, many cities are getting this river water. Reason is that this river water fit for supplying, for public water supply after conventional treatment. And that conventional treatment is coagulation, flocculation, rapid filtration, and disinfection. Now, when the river ecological flow is decreasing, then the BOD, instead of 30, it has become 10, because after dilution, it should not be more than 3 milligram per liter. So this is an important issue that need to be looked into. So we are talking about sewage treatment, everything, yes, pollution control. But one thing is very important is that the condition of the river need to be improved. Ganga Action Plan, that is the abatement of river pollution. This is an approach for definitely treatment of sewage, definitely treatment of industrial wastewater, but also to generate more flow. That means whole river basin is to be considered. Afforestation program needs to be taken up. Watershed management is to be taken up. Groundwater condition of this Ganga basin need to be improved. The groundwater is getting decreased, is getting reduced. I mean, the level is getting decreased. I mean, it is coming down. We are having a problem with respect to the groundwater resources in many places. So therefore, this approach is need to be taken holistically. In this slide, you can see a picture of activated sludge process where the sewage is getting mixed. Here the oxygen is getting supplied. Diffuse aeration system is taking place. We may have even surface aerators. But what is very important here is that we have to maintain biosolids. We have to maintain bacteria here. And this is a very important issue that need to be looked into with respect to operation of this particular plant. Dissolved oxygen must be available in this reactor. And dissolved oxygen should be around 1 milligram per liter to 2 milligram per liter, preferably say 1.5 milligram per liter. Now this oxygen must be available. If oxygen is not there, that means the demand of oxygen is not fulfilled. I mean, bacteria is not getting adequate amount of oxygen. Again, if oxygen is very high, say if I get dissolved oxygen 6 milligram per liter in this reactor, this indicates that the oxygen takers are not there. Bacteria population is less. Bacterial growth is not there in this particular system. Sewage, when we are treating sewage, it has all nutrient of the bacteria. But when we will be taking the industrial wastewater, you will find we have to add nutrient, like urea as nitrogen, diammonium phosphate as phosphorus, like that. So there are very many issues that need to be looked into with respect to sewage treatment plant. Clarifier, secondary clarifier, we have to dislodge, return sludge 24 hours. Now, when we go to many plants, we find return sludge as not up to the mark. Advocism is taking place with respect to running of the sewage treatment plant. As a result, sewage treatment plants are not running. There are many sewage treatment plants which are not operated for 24 hours, intermittently operated. Out of 24 hours, 5 hours, 6 hours, 7 hours is the working time. If a treatment plant which is biological treatment system, is not operated for 24 hours, then you can understand the bacterial growth in the system, functioning of the system, biological system, treatment system is getting jeopardized. It is not functioning well. And mostly we find not only in the urban sewage treatment plants like your city sewage treatment plants, municipal sewage treatment plant, this is also same like industrial wastewater treatment system. And also the operators who are operating this, they are not properly trained. This is also an important issue that we find while visiting the sewage treatment plant, effluent treatment plants. Okay. This is the constructed wetland or wastewater, wastewater recycling and reuse in the agriculture system. Now, this is the constructed wetland. In a constructed wetland, we must have the pre-treatment and the primary treatment. That means the screen, grit chamber, grit removal, as well as suspended solids removal need to take place initially. Then we allow the water to move through a media. This can be gravel, this can be pebble, this can be stone, like that. The water may flow downflow, upflow, both down, upflow, or horizontal flow. So when it is flowing through this media horizontally or up-down, vertical up-down system, or only downward system, the treatment is taking place. The attached growth system is there in the media. This is becoming an aerobic system also advantage. And we can grow plants over that. And that is also supplying oxygen to the system. And when it is getting treated, here it is showing horizontal movement, then the water is fit for utilization in the agriculture. We can utilize this wastewater for agriculture, vegetable growth, or crop growth, whatever we like, we can utilize. So it is a display where we are showing that the wastewater getting treated in constructed wetland, and then it is utilized in the agricultural system. This type of treatment system has been considered in the research projects that has been given under India, European Union joint projects to several institutions under DST. And since I'm associated with such type of projects, we are working with respect to this type of treatment system. This has been done in Pune. This has been done in Nagpur. And there are several other places like Aligarh Muslim University. They did very good work here. This type of treatment system. Okay. Now coming back again to the treatment system, I bring before you the common effluent treatment plants. Now, common effluent treatment plants are installed for cluster of industries. We have very many cluster of industries, common industries, where we may have common effluent treatment plants. Say if we have 100 industries, there is no need of installing effluent treatment plant in 100 industries. Then instead of that, we can collect all the effluent and treat in a common place, common effluent treatment plants. Today, according to information available to me, 193 common effluent treatment plants are working. It may be little 2, 3, 4 more. And maximum number of common effluent treatment plants working in Tamil Nadu, 49, Maharashtra, 27, then we have Gujarat, 30 numbers. Whereas in West Bengal, we have only one common effluent treatment plant, that is at Koraidanga for treatment of tannery effluent. we come to the sewage treatment plant again. Number of sewage treatment plant, according to information available to me, 920 in India. So 920 municipal sewage treatment plants are working in India, and accordingly, you will find different states are different. And in West Bengal, we have, of course, shown here 28 functional. Okay. Now, if we look into the class 1, mega city, metro city, class 1 cities, and as well as class 2 cities, we are generating 40,000 million liters of sewage. Earlier, what I showed actually in the first slide, that was the total wastewater. Class 1, class 2, class 3, mega city, metro city, like that. Actually, we have more than 7,000 cities in India. Now, 40,000 milliliter of sewage that is generated in mega metro city and class 1, class 2 cities, only 30% wastewater is getting treated as per facility available. But treated effluent from 39% sewage treatment plants are not conforming to the standard. This is important to be noted. 39% sewage treatment plants are not functioning properly, and their effluents are not conforming to this standard. Operation and maintenance of sewage treatment plant and pumping stations are unsatisfactory. Existing treatment capacities are not utilized effectively in many treatment systems. And these are mostly discharged in the water bodies. Some wastewater is getting discharged to agriculture or farming land. So mode of disposal of urban wastewater, disposal directly in the river. In some cities and towns, disposal into directly river as well as in the agricultural land. Even disposal indirectly in river, lakes and pond. Disposal directly to the agricultural lands. And in coastal cities and towns, wastewater finds its way to estuary, creeks and bays. In summary, I can say that mostly major quantum of treated wastewater is getting discharged in water bodies, rivers, canals. Only certain portion of this wastewater is utilized for the agricultural purpose. It is limited still today. So we have ample opportunity of recycling and reusing of wastewater. When I'm talking about this disposal of wastewater, urban wastewater, a study conducted by 7 IITs led by Professor Vinod Tare under National River Conservation Directorate. What they recommended? They recommended that treated sewage should not be discharged into the river. Strictly, they mentioned that they recommended not a single drop of sewage after treatment should be discharged in the river. Instead of that, they recommended the use of the treated sewage for different purposes, agriculture, then industry. So therefore, we have to look into this particular issue of recycling and reuse of wastewater. Why recycling and reuse of wastewater? To meet the water crisis, water shortage of fresh water. In our country, we are experiencing shortage of fresh water. If we look into the water resources that are available to our country, we are facing water stress condition in many regions of the country, water acute condition in many regions of our country. There are instances that railway wagons are utilized for transporting drinking water. I can mention about Latur in Maharashtra. I can mention the refugees due to this climate change, due to this water shortage. Even in India, in certain places, with cattle, the villagers are changing their habitat temporarily for 3-4 months due to the water shortage. So therefore, to meet the water crisis, water shortage of fresh water, shortage of fresh water, and parallelly due to the increasing demand in the agricultural sector, industry, power generation sector, domestic sector, we have no other alternative but to recycle and reuse of wastewater. If we utilize the wastewater after treatment, we'll be saving the fresh water. Then the very important issue is coming is the resource recovery. We have to recover the resources from the wastewater and its treatment. When we are talking about wastewater treatment, sewage treatment, we may get energy because of biogas we can generate from the sludge treatment. Anaerobic decomposition of sludge will generate biogas, and out of this biogas we can generate even electricity. Energy can be generated from the sewage treatment plant. We can get manure. Sludge after treatment is becoming manure, very good manure. Then we can have pisciculture. Treated wastewater can be utilized for pisciculture. We can generate algae. Algae culture we can do from the treated wastewater. That can be utilized as the poultry feed. We can also develop duckweed pond. Duckweed can be utilized as poultry feed. Then we can get irrigation water. So resource recovery is very important. For using wastewater after quality upgradation to meet the domestic water need. Yes, we can even utilize the treated wastewater for to meet the domestic need. Let us talk about the flushing water. You are utilizing drinking water for the flushing. Yes, we are all utilizing drinking water for the flushing. Is it needed? We can definitely utilize the wastewater after treatment for flushing. For using effluent after required treatment in the industrial process, effluent which is treated in the industrial wastewater treatment plants, effluent treatment plant, we can utilize that effluent, treated effluent in the industrial purpose. We are doing that. Paper industry is utilizing, I'll show you example. Paper industry is utilizing wastewater for their process. To support farmers by providing water to grow vegetables and crops. This is important. This will help the farmers and to minimize environmental pollution. So recycling and reuse of wastewater is needed. Wastewater recycling and reuse paradigm shift from the past. So we are shifting. This is a paradigm shift from the past. We are shifting towards recycling and reusing. Use of treated wastewater for domestic purposes. Yes, we are doing so. Wastewater from the bathroom gets treated and used for toilet flushing. Treated domestic sewage is also used for toilet flushing, gardening. When we are recommending this, when we are giving environmental clearance to housing projects, more than 20,000 square meter habitable area, it is mandatory for the housing society to separately collect the bathroom water and get it treated and used for the flushing. Alternatively, they can treat the sewage up to tertiary level and let it be used for the toilet flushing as well as gardening. This we start when I was a member of the environmental impact assessment committee. Authority here in West Bengal from 2007 to 2013. Dr. Arun Biswas was also the member of the this authority, ACSE. So we used to give clearance. Subject to that, all housing society must follow this direction. So therefore, we are recommending this, and many institutes, many hotels, many hostels, many housing societies are adhering to this treatment of wastewater and utilizing this wastewater for toilet flushing. Treated municipal wastewater is getting used in agriculture in many regions of our country. Yes, it has started. Treated municipal wastewater is getting used in some industries. Last week, I was in a meeting of Indian Chamber of Commerce for Excellence Award, Environmental Excellence Award, where different industries of our country made presentation. In this context, I like to mention the Hindustan Zinc, Udaipur. They are utilizing the wastewater, which is getting treated for the Udaipur town for their industry. 60 million liters of wastewater they are treating. They are treating the Udaipur city sewage and utilizing for their industry. In Delhi also, the sewage, treated sewage is getting utilized in the industries. We can utilize for cooling, quenching, and also in the process in certain industries, as I mentioned, like paper industry. Treated industrial wastewater is getting recycled and reused in the process manufacturing. Zero discharge norm. This is zero liquid discharge norm. That is zero liquid discharge norm has been adopted and getting adopted in many industries as directed by the CPCB. CPCB has given direction to industries to adopt zero liquid discharge norm, that not a single drop of water will come out from the industry. 100% of the water need to be utilized. So different treatment system they are adhering to, so that this water can be utilized for very many purposes in the industry itself. So ZLD is another very appropriate recommendation that has been made by the CPCB and being followed by many industries today. Relevant issues to be addressed for wastewater recycling reuse: to select appropriate technology for developing the tailor-made wastewater treatment processes for meeting the quality standard for recycling and reuse of wastewater. This is very important. Selection of appropriate technology. What technology you will adopt? So selection of technology is an important issue we do consider. To assess scope as well as extent and magnitude of the demand for recycling and reuse of wastewater. This is very important. That means assessment of the demand of water. Operation and maintenance aspect of total process mechanism. Why? Because there could be risk. When we are talking about recycling and reuse of wastewater, there could be risk. Say sewage after treatment is utilized for the agriculture, there could be risk. There could be occupational health hazard for the farmers. Consumer health hazard. If I am consuming, say, vegetable salad without cleaning, without washing with hot water, it may cause problem. It may cause helminthic infestation in the body. So therefore, various aspects, risk aspects also need to be looked into. Cost benefit analysis and social as well as user acceptability in the system. This is also very important. User acceptability. And accordingly, we have to motivate the people. When I'm talking about the utilization of this wastewater in agriculture, the farmers need to be motivated. They need to be aware. I remember Titagarh sewage treatment plant. The adjoining area, agriculture area, the farmers used to take the wastewater after primary clarifier, not after secondary clarifier. They considered that the effluent after primary clarifier contains enough nutrient for the vegetable soil. So they used to take that. When we approached them, They declined to accept the secondary clarified effluent. So we had to motivate them, aware them why it is needed, because it is advantageous. Occupational health hazard is less. So social as well as user acceptability of the system is very important. Now, recycling and reuse of wastewater application. Water quality specification is the most important criteria for assessing the water use pattern. What purpose you are using. And each of the purpose is setting a standard. Say we are drinking water, we have a standard. Bathing water, we have a separate standard. So every use are having relevant standard for the use. In India, recycling and reuse of water is gaining ground not only in industrial sector but also in agricultural sector. As I mentioned, municipal sewage or sewage after required treatment can be used for irrigation to ensure sustainability of soil crop wastewater system. Okay. In developed countries where environmental standards are applied very much, like USA or European countries, much of the wastewater is treated prior to use for irrigation of fodder, fiber, and seed crops, and to a limited extent for the irrigation of orchard, vineyard, and other crops. So the treatment, what extent treatment is necessary depending upon its use. In India, use of urban wastewater for irrigation is in practice in some specific areas. It includes application of untreated or partially treated wastewater in crops and vegetable production. So these are also there. If I talk about East Kolkata, where we are utilizing untreated wastewater. East Kolkata wetland, vegetables are going with untreated wastewater, yes. So there are instances also in India where untreated or partially treated wastewater are getting utilized. In India, treated sewage is being used today for variety of application. What purpose we are now using the treated wastewater in India? For farm forestry, horticulture, industrial use as in cooling towers, agriculture, fish culture, toilet flushing, etc. I'm giving some examples of our country, utilization of this wastewater. Chennai Municipal Metropolitan Water Supply and Sewerage Board has been promoting the growth of farm forestry with the use of city sewage. This is the utilization of wastewater, sprinkler methods being adhered to here. They are following that with the wastewater. This is utilization in the lawn, golf course, etc. Indian Agriculture Research Institute, Karnal, carried out extensive research study on sewage farming and recommended irrigation method for sewage-fed tree plantation. So their recommendation is tree plantation, not vegetable growing. And advantage of tea plantation is that people are not eating anything out of that tree, but it is giving money to the people from the plant. So sewage-fed tree plantation is a very good method for wastewater treatment. This is also giving revenue to the people. Chandigarh is using treated sewage for horticulture, gardening, and maintaining granaries. Delhi has put in place planned reuse of treated sewage for designated institutional centers. Government of Karnataka has issued an official directive to take all necessary steps to ensure that only tertiary treated sewage may be used for non-potable purposes. Non-potable purposes like all gardening, including parks, resorts, and golf courses. So this is also very good. I remember that we did some study in this respect under India European Union research project, and in Nagpur, where NIRI was the principal institute for this particular one project, where we utilized the wastewater in a park, and this park, Dayanand Park, where the wastewater is getting treated in the park itself and it getting utilized for gardening. So this is the advantage. Current practice of recycling and reuse of treated waste. Let us take the example of Kolkata. We have East Kolkata, you know, East Kolkata wetland. This is Ramsar site declared in 2002. We have 12,900 hectares of land, East Kolkata wetland, where the Kolkata's wastewater is getting utilized for pisciculture and agriculture. 1,100 million liter of wastewater from the city without treatment is going to the East Kolkata via Bantala. And we have 264 fisheries in 3,900 hectares of land in East Kolkata. And we are getting roughly about 18,000 to 20,000 metric ton of fish per year. So this is a glaring example, but this East Kolkata, we consider it is a ecologically balanced wastewater management system. There are risks. We have studied. Actually, I studied with WHO team the risk associated with the wastewater utilization in East Kolkata. So sanitation safety planning is necessary for such type of program. And unless we adhere to such type of sanitation safety planning, it will be difficult it will be problematic. Okay. Treated sewage of Kollani town, West Bengal, is used for farming to grow vegetables. Treated sewage is getting of Kollani town is used for farming to grow vegetables. And also in Titagarh town, West Bengal, partially treated sewage is used for the growth of green vegetables. So these are the examples of Kolkata metropolitan area. This is sewage fed fish pond in East Kolkata. This is the raw sewage is getting mixed into the pond. Now this is the fish pond. It is working like a waste stabilization pond. In waste stabilization pond, we have three ponds, three type of ponds: anaerobic pond, facultative pond, maturation pond. And East Kolkata, this type of ponds are working like a facultative pond. So the raw sewage is getting mixed into the pond. It is getting diluted. The raw sewage BOD roughly about 70 to 80 milligram per liter. Kolkata sewage, dry weather flow BOD is roughly 170 to 180 milligram per liters. And when it is reaching to the fisheries after traveling 5, 6, 7 kilometers, it is becoming 70 to 80 milligram per liter. It is getting mixed. And the effluent, when it is going out from the fish pond, the BOD could be around 10, 12, 11 milligram per liter, even sometimes less than 10 milligram per liter. This is the fish being harvested in the morning from this fish pond. Now, treated effluent municipal wastewater disposal on land for irrigation. Discharge norm. Central Pollution Control Board discharge norm. Treated industrial effluent municipal wastewater should meet norm prescribed for irrigation under Environment Protection Rule 1986 or consent, where it has been mentioned. It is for industrial wastewater, pH 5.5 to 9 milligram per liter, TSS 200 milligram per liter, when oil and bleach 10 milligram per liter, BOD 100 milligram per liter, arsenic 0.2 milligram per liter, cyanide 0.2 milligram per liter. So this is the norm for utilization of the wastewater for the irrigation under EP Rule 1986. TDS should not be more than 2,100 milligram per liter. So this is an important parameter. Dissolved solid should not be more than 2,100 milligram per liter. And SAR shall preferably be less than 18, but must not be more than 26. BioSA test 90% survival of fish after 96 hours in 100% effluent. So this was the this was the standard prescribed by the Central Pollution Control Board for treated effluent or treated municipal wastewater to be utilized for the land for irrigation. But when we come to the new standard as per National Green Tribunal, 30th April 2019, direction given by Honorable National Green Tribunal, and Chairman Central Pollution Control Board directed all state pollution control board to make it mandatory for local bodies to set up sewerage system for treatment and disposal of sewage to meet the prescribed standard. So this is applicable to all municipal sewage treatment plant. And please note that this standard will be applicable for discharge into water bodies as well as for land disposal and application as per National Green Tribunal. What is the norm? That I have already mentioned, but again, pH 5.5 to 9.0, BOD 10 milligram per liter. This is the maximum limit. It should be less than that. COD 50 milligram per liter. Total suspended solids 20 milligram per liter. Total nitrogen 10 milligram per liter. Total phosphorus 1 milligram per liter. Fecal coliform desirable 100 per 100 ml MPN count, and fecal coliform permissible 230 per 100 ml MPN count. Why I am raising? I am raising because of the fact that if we have to follow this for the land disposal, then the earlier standard that is still there by the Ministry of Environment and Forest, what to follow? So this is very important. This is the standard we do consider. We strongly believe as an environmentalist, this should be followed by the sewage treatment plant. Yes. But if we have to utilize the treated wastewater for the agricultural purpose, can we not compromise a little bit? I am not discussing, I am not contesting this particular standard. I should not contest this standard because it has been directed by the Honorable Court. But one have to look into this particular aspect also, that yes, I should not dispose wastewater after treatment if it is not conforming to this standard in the water bodies, in the river. Yes. I will not discharge my treated wastewater to river Ganga if it is not conforming to this. Okay. But whether I have to follow this with respect to utilization for the irrigation purpose, agriculture purpose, this is a question we have to decide on this. Okay. Now I am bringing very quickly one case study how recycling and reuse is getting done in paper industry. Since I am associated with a few paper industry in West Bengal, this paper industry is utilizing old paper. You know that many industries are there, paper industry in West Bengal also, they are utilizing old paper for manufacturing real newspaper, real then coated duplex board, craft paper, etc. Now this industry is manufacturing coated duplex board, craft paper. Producing industry, this is using old paper. Production capacity is 7,900 metric ton per month. Quite big industry, 94,800 tons per annum. Actual production is like this, that I have mentioned, that sometimes it is little less. 2017-18, they produced 90,000. As per consent, 94,800, they produced 90,000, like that. Raw material, paper, waste paper utilization. So 92,000 metric ton, like that. Energy consumption, so much I have shown. Fuel consumption I have made, shown. Okay. Coming to effluent treatment plant, basic principle of treatment is physical, chemical, and biological. Inflow to effluent treatment plant is treating 2,845 cubic meter per day. This is the wastewater is getting treated in the effluent treatment plant. An effluent treatment plant comprises of equalization tank, primary clarifier, aeration tank, secondary clarifier, facultative aerated lagoon, sedimentation tank, pressure sand filter, and activated carbon filter. Apart from that, the industry is having dissolved air flotation, that is CROFTA. So paper industries normally have CROFTA, that is upflow, that is fluid, I mean dissolved air flotation upflow system. This is also Sedicel type of thing, type of unit, where they recover the fibers and utilize in the process. So recovery is taking place in the dissolved air flotation system, that is also there. Production capacity monthly 700-900 metric ton, daily 263 metric ton. Source of water, groundwater, borewell water. Also rainwater roof catchment system harvesting 10,000 cubic meter. This is the source of water, that is basically borewell water. Process requirement excluding boiler feed water and domestic water, 15 cubic meter per ton. This is the process requirement for metric ton, 1 metric ton paper production, 15 cubic meter water. So total water requirement 3,996 cubic meter per day. Boiler feed water requires requiring 250 cubic meter per day, and domestic requirement for the workers, factory workers, 824 cubic meter per day. Total water requirement 4,270 cubic meter per day. So 4,270 cubic meter water is required every day by the industry for production of the 263 metric ton of duplex board. But what is actually taken, fresh water taken from the borewell is only 840 cubic meters. Their maximum permission of 950 from West Bengal Pollution Control Board as per consent. So only 840 cubic meter fresh water is taken from the groundwater source. Number of borewells, 4 numbers, have permission from the SWID. Recirculation from ETP, 2,480 cubic meter per day is recirculation from the ETP. Recirculation from the CROFTA, that unit I mentioned, that is DAF, 950 cubic meter per day. So total recirculation, reclaimed water after treatment is 2,480 plus 950, that is 3,430 cubic meter per day water. Wastewater is recycled, reused every day. And total water used in the process, therefore, 3,430 plus 840 fresh water, 4,270. So you can understand that out of this 4,270 cubic meter that is required, 3,430 cubic meter per day is recycled in the system. So in plant recirculation of clarified water from CROFTA, 950, as I mentioned, recirculation from ETP, primary treated effluent. After primary clarifier, the wastewater is treated through dual media filter, 2,000 cubic meter per day. Recirculation from the secondary clarifier from the ETP, 480 cubic meter per day. So total recirculation, 3,430 cubic meter per day, which is 80% of the total requirement. So what I like to mention that the industry is achieving 80% recycling, reuse system in the process. So they are saving 80% of the fresh water. So only 20% water is taken as a fresh water. And in future, it may come down. Okay. So water loss in the manufacturing process, apart from that 206 cubic meter, I like to mention discharge of the treated wastewater only 365. So only 365 cubic meter is coming out. Discharge of treated wastewater 365 cubic meter per day. Discharge of domestic effluent 19 cubic meter per day. Water consumed in steam generation 250 cubic meter per day. That is in the boiler. Okay, way forward. Finally, reclaimed or recycled water is the process of converting wastewater into water that can be reused for various purposes. Reuse may include irrigation of gardens and agricultural field, to minimize freshwater use. Recycled water may also be used in the residential houses, institution, and industry. Energy efficient natural treatment can upgrade wastewater quality so as to conform to the norm of agriculture use, gardening, and horticulture. In conclusion, I must say that the sewage treatment plant must work like factory. Yes, this is very important. A sewage treatment plant will be working like a factory, where the sewage is the raw material available free of cost. And we can generate from that energy, manure, poultry feed, fish, and irrigation water. So we can recover the resources. Assets of sewerage and sewage treatment system must be sustainable. Proper O&M is the key issue to achieve that. Revenue earning should be the target from the resource recovery. So we have to earn revenue out of that. Otherwise, operation and maintenance cost will be not available as per requirement. Treated wastewater must be recycled and reused to minimize freshwater use. Decentralized wastewater management system is the good practice, and urban local bodies should consider such decentralized approach for city sanitation. The pollution load on river and other water bodies could be reduced effectively if decentralized approach is undertaken for management of wastewater along with recycling and reuse of wastewater. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen, for your patient hearing. Yes, please.
This is a very am I audible? I hope.
Yes, please.
I request the participants for the deliberation.
If you have any question, you can ask me. For I think time is short. Almost I have taken 1 hour. Okay.
Professor
If you have
Banerjee,
question, you can raise. Yes, please. Anybody having any question? बोला नहीं.
There are some questions in the chat box, Professor Majumdar.
बोलूं. अच्छा अपना का
There are why the flows in rivers are getting reduced.
बोलूं आरेकबार.
Why the flows in rivers are getting reduced? This is one question. One question is after treated sewage, water drained into the. There is some question from Gaurav. Gaurav, you please ask the question to the professor. Directly you ask Gaurav. So these are the questions.
Now, first question is why the ecological flow is getting reduced. This is one of the reason is that our groundwater resources are getting depleted. If water tables are getting minimized, getting reduced, lowering of water table, because it is a linkage. Surface water, groundwater linkage is there. Okay. So if groundwater is shrinking, then there will be less flow. Many rivers are died. You know, the waterman of our India, Dr. Rajendra Kumar in Rajasthan, he mobilized local villagers in doing recharging of wastewater. So recharging of water, recharging of rainwater, that is watershed management. Now, watershed management system was adopted for groundwater recharging through villagers' participation. Men, women, everybody, they work hard different places of Rajasthan, and 5 rivers became live. Dead river became live. In West Bengal also, Dr. Biswas knows that many rivers have died. Saraswati River, what is the condition of Saraswati River? What is the condition of Ichamati? If you see this, you will find that the river flow has decreased considerably. Almost it has become dead. Many rivers are dead. So if you have to revive the river, their channel flow, then if you can improve the groundwater condition there through people's participation, through watershed management, let us have some contour band, check dam, gullies, maybe some water bodies, pond. So this will allow more recharging. So in Ganga basin, this has been undertaken. The second important point is the afforestation. More you do afforestation, this is advantageous. More would be the recharging. More would be the groundwater resources getting increased. So issue is this, that holistic approach need to be taken. Yes, we have to control pollution. We have to check pollution. We have to abate pollution. But parallelly, this approach also need to be taken because environment as a whole we have to consider. Okay. Any other question? No.
Here, আরেকটা কোশ্চেনটা বলে দে। গৌরব যেটা বলেছে,
Gaurav,
Mic are not working
Okay.
properly.
yes. You read out the question, no problem.
just a minute, hold on.
There is another question.
Huh?
There is another question, please.
Yes, please. Paul.
Hello, I'm
Oh.
Sanjoy Banerjee.
Yes,
Yes.
yes.
Hi. So should I start to begin my lecture?
1 minute.
Or
Sir, just for 2 minutes. Sir, just for
Okay.
2 minutes. Okay.
okay,
Previous speaker, little deliberation is going on. Okay.
can you hear me?
Yes, surely. The previous speakers, little deliberation is going on, the discussion.
Okay.
Just,
I can-
please. Yes.
Yes.
So are you going to? I can just start, share my screen, or how would you like me to go?
Just before that, I will tell some few sentences about you, and then
Okay.
I will kindly please wait for few.
Yeah,
Okay. I think is there any question or then I have to quit? Okay. Dr.
Hello?
Vishwas? Yes.
Sir, many cities are drain deep.
Yes,
Hello?
please. Yes.
Hello, am I audible,
Yes.
sir?
Yes, yes. Yes, please.
Hello.
Yes, please. I can.
Cities are drain treated wastewater into river, Ganga river, also are also polluted this type of draining. This is one of the question from Kumar Gaurav.
What is the question again, please? Please.
Many cities that drain treated wastewater into river, Ganga river, are also polluted this type of draining.
No, actually, lot of wastewater still getting discharged into the river Ganga. We carried out a study a couple of years back, of course. Dr. Arun Biswas is here. Both of us were there from Jadavpur University. We identified 54 outfall drains, 54 major outfall drains discharging wastewater along the river Ganga in the lower Ganga region. Our West Bengal is in the lower Ganga region. We identified 54 outfall drains. The problem is that these outfall drains are carrying both domestic wastewater as well as industrial wastewater, and that is polluting. So today, under Namami Gange program, they are addressing how to reduce that. So accordingly, they are trying to reduce from the source itself, okay, by laying sewerage and collecting that, conveying and treating in the sewage treatment plant. Then fecal sludge management is another very important that they are also taking up. So there are various ways they are trying to control. Actually, problem lies with respect to river Ganga is that in this lower Ganga, almost all the stretches are unfit for bathing. Okay, since it is unfit for bathing, we have to improve the quality of the river. Basic quality of the river improvement is on bacterial population. I mean, fecal coliform, fecal streptococci, E. coli. These are very high. So this fecal coliform need to be reduced, and the stringent regulation we have to follow with respect to the sewage treatment plant, and we have to bring the river as per bathing standard. This is our objective, and also the ecological flow need to be improved. Okay.
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you very much. Okay.
This is a very wonderful discussion.
Okay. Thank you.
And a very illuminating lecture.
Thank you. Thank you. Namaskar. Thank you very much. Namaskar.
Our next speaker, we are eagerly waiting for him, Professor Sanjay Banerjee. Professor Sanjay Banerjee is a distinguished professor of chemical engineering, City College of New York, and director of the City University of New York Energy Institute. Professor Banerjee is also the founder and chairman of the Urban Electric Power, spun out of the CUNY Energy Institute to develop the Beyond Lithium batteries. Banerjee was recruited from UC Santa Barbara, where he had been department chair and previously taught at Berkeley Northwest McMaster University and worked at Atomic Energy of Canada as director of the Applied Science Division. He has also served as Mitsubishi Professor at the University of Tokyo, the Burgess Professor at TU Delft, and at ETH Zurich. He has also served on several advisory boards, NASA Fluid Physics, the Oil Industry Flow Assurance Consortium, and the Advisory Committee on Reactor Safeguards, congressionally mandated to advise on nuclear facilities. He had the education, basically, I think he is so well known that it is not necessary to tell about his education, but still it is mentioned that he is PhD from University of Waterloo, and his research interest is multi-scale and interfacial phenomena in multi-phase systems, dendrite formation and control, conversion of electrochemical reactions, turbulence and complexity. And apart from that, I think the very famous book on hazardous waste and industrial reactors, that book also is being authored by Professor Banerjee, isn't it? From
Yes,
CRC Press. So I think we have a lot of interactions with him around 5 years back. Just he visited this country and we requested, and immediately he agreed. And this time also he agreed to address, though the time is not much convenient at New Year. It is very early morning, but still he is very gracious to address the audience. Over to Professor Banerjee. Please, Sanjay, please.
Yes, thank you so much for the kind introduction. Today, Swamiji, I agreed to talk on our sustainable energy future, and in particular with regard to the role of energy storage in achieving such a sustainable energy future. Can you hear me clearly?
Oh, surely.
Okay.
Surely, Sanjay, carry on.
I'm going to, if you don't mind, then I will share my screen. I have about 30 slides I want to show.
Oh, surely.
And I can send those slides on to you later. And then I'll try to keep the talk, as you suggested, to about an hour. If needed, I can try to shorten it a bit because we are about 15 minutes into the hour. Would you prefer I reduced it to 45 minutes then?
No, I don't think so. I mean, because it is a rare opportunity to listen to you. So let us have the fullest utilization. Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Sanjay. Carry on.
Okay, thank you. Let me try to share my screen. And please ask any questions, anything that during my talk, I'm addressing the audience now. If you have any questions, I'm happy to answer them and be in an interactive mode. I don't mind that. So that's fine. And or I can wait till the end to answer your questions. So let me start by sharing my screen.
Yes.
And just now, can you see my screen clearly?
Yes, but there are lots of slides. I mean, not a particular one.
Okay, you're seeing the slide sorter.
Yes.
Now I have actually put this into
Go
the
to slideshow.
Can
Go
you
to
see the
slideshow.
slides only now, or the first slide? Can you
No,
see that?
It is sorted view. Go to slideshow.
Photo view. Yeah,
Yes.
let me go to slideshow.
Yes.
Hold on.
I
Let
think
me
it
get
is A5.
A5.
Yes.
I'm not an expert at this, so let me see. So,
You put from the first, you put your cursor on the first slide and the upper screen, play from start or play
yes,
from
that's
current
what
slide.
I did play from start. Let me, so now let me see what happened here. So what happened here? I'm at a loss. Wait, let me reduce this. And so PowerPoint. Can you see it now? Or you are seeing the slide sorter still?
Still we are seeing the slide sorted.
Okay. So let me see. Let me close that then.
You close and then again.
And then I did play from start.
Yes.
Let me see. Okay. So let me start the screen share again. Okay. I am screen sharing, but let me stop share and start again. Now what? PowerPoint. Let's see the view. Slideshow. Now can you see the slides? Are you seeing the main slide here?
Please share the screen.
Can you hear me? Yeah, I'm sharing the screen. Can you see it?
No.
Oh God. Okay.
Let me do it with you, Sanjay.
Hold on. I have somebody on the phone who can help me here. So tell me.
So,
Go to share screen.
yeah, go to share screen
Okay.
and then click on just the PowerPoint file. Do you have it open?
I don't see it here. No.
Okay, go back to PowerPoint. Let's make sure you have the file open.
It's not doing anything. Let me go back to PowerPoint. It must be behind here. Wait a sec. It's just in Zoom.
Sanjay, can you mail me? I mean,
Uh,
then we can project it.
yes, I can,
You
but
mail
I
it,
don't understand why I can't
Oh, it's
share.
coming. It's coming. It's coming. I mean,
Is it coming? Ah, this is it.
again the shorter view. Here,
Okay, let me just change to slideshow. And can you see it now?
Yes.
Okay. So let me go through it, starting
Yes.
from here. Okay. So thank you. I'm sorry for the problems, but it should be okay now. I can't see your faces, but I can see the slides. So the talk I'm going to give today is related to how we may move towards a sustainable energy future and the role that energy storage would play in such a future. So that's the topic. And the main subjects I will cover are what do we mean by sustainable? And this has a broad definition. There are effects which are economic, social, environmental, and so on. And what I will speak about to some extent is the current situation, which is not sustainable. We are using our resources in a way which is not going to leave things for future generations, and what the impacts of this are, in terms of global warming, pollution, and so on. And then I will move on to how we may go towards a sustainable future based on renewable resources. But these resources are intermittent, they're not available at all times. And therefore, we need energy storage as a key ingredient to our future. And that is a grand challenge in some ways for us to be able to develop in the next decades. There are many approaches, and I will primarily deal with an approach which is based on some electrochemical means, whether this is to form hydrogen and store the hydrogen and then use it in fuel cells, or directly to store the electricity in batteries, large-scale batteries. And then I will consider some of the energy options with regard to batteries, and end more or less with the challenges and effects that we may see. So that's the overall scheme of my discussion. And my second slide, or third slide, relates to what is sustainability? What do we mean by a sustainable future? So sustainability in broad terms means our ability to use resources in such a way that we don't compromise the ability of future generations to meet their needs. So these have several dimensions, and I've tried to show this by the sort of Venn diagram below. There is a dimension related to equity, economic viability, and environmental protection. When all these intersect, in the center of this, we have something sustainable, which not only protects the environment, but is also economically viable and provides social equity. Clearly, we could choose paths which are very expensive and therefore they're not economically viable, and they also leave poor people behind and not able to, enjoy the fruits of this sustainable action. So all these aspects must be taken into account. And in the context of energy, we generally mean that it should avoid depletion of natural resources while preserving an ecological balance and the quality of life, not only for ourselves, but for the future. Now, how is energy currently used? So if you look at the next slide, energy is primarily used today from what we call fossil resources. These are resources which we have made over millions of years, the earth has made, by storing sunlight, actually. So the sunlight gets stored in the carbon which goes into plant life or animal remains and so on, and over millions of years turns into oil and gas, as I've shown in the top part of this slide. Another way is, and this is in the oceans, another way would be to form coal, also from plant life, which stores sunlight in its wood and in its leaves and so on, and in animal life. And eventually this can turn into coal. Usually coal is formed on land, whereas oil and gas are formed in water. These processes take millions of years to store the sunlight. What we are doing is taking this resource and using it up in a few human generations, as I've shown on the right. This, of course, has many adverse effects. The carbon which is being stored releases itself as carbon dioxide in most cases, and I'll show you this tends to lead to some adverse effects. Furthermore, it tends to release possibly particulate matter, which also can have adverse effects, for example, on your health if you breathe it. As you know, in a city in India, for example, where they're burning a lot of diesel or something, you get particulates in the air which have respiratory effects. So there are multi-effects of this use of fossil fuels so rapidly. Things which have been stored over geological timescales, we're using over human timescales. So this, in a broad sense, is not a sustainable future for us to go towards. And this is sort of illustrated in the next slide, where I show you that we are using up the fossil fuels on the right by burning them in one form or the other. I've shown you a power plant here, but of course you can burn it in a car, you can burn it in many different ways, in a scooter and so on. The end product is that you have carbon dioxide, and in cases water, going into the atmosphere. And this partly can be absorbed into the oceans, where animals, again, like plankton and so on, use that carbon dioxide, turn it into perhaps their shells, like calcium carbonate, which goes down into the ocean, eventually will form oil again, but it'll take millions of years. Similarly, the carbon dioxide can go into the vegetation to form leaves and, the trunks of trees, branches, and so on. And then there is, of course, some of it is decaying and going back into the atmosphere. So you see this cycle of the carbon, but because we are producing more by burning these fossil fuels so rapidly, the concentration of carbon dioxide in the atmosphere is increasing. And that is got several effects. Of course, not only is the concentration of these types of greenhouse gases, and I'll show you what that means in a moment, increasing, but also the particulate concentration in the atmosphere is increasing. So the amount of excess carbon dioxide that we are putting in, or excess greenhouse gases, has the effect of building up rapidly the concentration in the atmosphere, which comes from many different sources. I'm showing you here the energy consumption in the US, just as an example of where we are getting our energy resources. You can see the vast majority is coming from natural gas, coal, petroleum, and some forms of biomass, which are not necessarily renewable on a short time scale. For example, when you cut wood and you burn it, it provides energy, but for that tree to grow again, it may take many years. So there is, at least temporarily, an increase in the greenhouse gas and particulate levels in the atmosphere. Towards the top of this, you see more sources which are renewable and which are being used more on a human time scale. Not necessarily nuclear, but nuclear is a source of energy which is not derived directly from sunlight. But solar, hydro, wind, geothermal, these are all coming eventually from sunlight, not so much geothermal. But nuclear and geothermal are perhaps not directly derived from sunlight, but they may be considered not using up the resources of the world so rapidly. So this is for the US. I'll show you later on global. The main problem is that we are using mainly our fossil resources to supply our energy needs. The next slide shows you this in more detail. You can see that the vast majority of our use is fossil resources, whereas a very small amount is renewables or perhaps nuclear. And the two main sources of carbon dioxide, for example, are our electrical generation. Electricity has become a very important part of our life today, and transportation. You can see the width of these gray streams, if you wish, are what gives you the amount of carbon dioxide being put into the atmosphere. So from electricity generation, quite a substantial amount, almost half of the carbon dioxide goes in. From transportation, again, a very large amount, perhaps at least a third or more. And then industrial use. Residential and our commercial uses that form of energy form relatively small streams. So in order to get to a sustainable future, we have to move our electricity generation primarily and transportation to the extent possible to be based on renewable resources. And this is the sort of energy future that we are trying to move towards. Now, this shows you the situation today with regard to energy use. You can see that the fraction of energy use from natural gas, oil, and coal are still the vast majority of the energy we are using today. There are increasing amounts of renewables, primarily wind and maybe solar. There is some hydropower being used, but of course, that is limited to some extent by the availability of these hydro resources and some amount of nuclear power. The nuclear power, of course, does not produce carbon dioxide. And when nuclear power evolves more, it will be more widely deployed. And as we go on, you'll see that it can also form a significant fraction of the non-CO2 producing energy future. But the vast majority of the energy future would have to be taken by renewable resources. So moving on, let me show you the current situation. The carbon dioxide in the atmosphere is plotted here over 800,000 years. The historical record comes from taking ice cores, so we know how much carbon dioxide there was. You can see that historically it fluctuated between 300 and maybe 200 over a long period of time, ppm in the atmosphere. Recently, it has gone up to almost a little bit higher than 400. This, as I will show you, has many effects. One is it gives rise to a greenhouse gas effect, which I'll explain in a moment, that tends to warm up the Earth. It also acidifies the oceans. So the composition of the oceans are changing because carbon dioxide gets absorbed into the ocean. And as you know, it's slightly acidic. So it forms a slightly acidic ocean, which has effects clearly on, the life within the ocean. Another effect of this is that the ice caps tend to melt and the sea level tends to rise. So what we are looking at is that the sea levels could rise significantly as the CO2 accumulates in the atmosphere, warms up the globe, and the ice melts and the sea level rises. The rate at which we've put carbon dioxide into the air has not been repeated now for 3 million years. Way back, there were periods when the carbon dioxide concentration, and it's not shown here, was around 400. The sea level at that time was 50 to 80 feet higher than it is today. So this is not a wonderful situation that we're going into over the next 100 years or so if this situation continues. So how does this work actually? Let me show you this. What you've got here is a typical, you can see within even something like 60 years, we have gone from 320 ppm of carbon dioxide to over 400 ppm, more or less the last part of that slide that I showed you before. This last bump, which has been very rapid, going up due to the ability of the biosphere not to use the carbon, not to uptake the carbon dioxide that we produce. But how does this greenhouse gas effect work? What happens is here you see the yellow lines, which are the sunlight, which fall onto the atmosphere, shown in light blue. And the sunlight also falls on our Earth, the ground. Some of it is reflected back, as you can see this yellow line going back, but not all of it. Some of it gets absorbed to warm up our biosphere. And when it warms up, it tends to radiate back the energy at a different wavelength, which is the infrared wavelength. So the sunlight falling splits into a reflection, if you wish, which is at the same wavelength as light, and it relatively readily passes through the atmosphere. Not completely, because if you have particulate matter and so on, it could somewhat get absorbed. But the main thing is when it heats up the biosphere, it gets reflected back as infrared, which tends to absorb into certain gases. Water vapor is one of them. CO2, carbon dioxide, is the other. And even methane, natural gas, tends to absorb this infrared very strongly. So what tends to happen, just like any greenhouse, is that this atmosphere warms up due to the increased concentration of CO2, tends to give you increased temperatures due to the infrared absorption. And because this warms up, it evaporates more water, perhaps from the oceans, warms up the oceans. So it's a vicious cycle. It tends to feed back and give you increased warming. So this is the global warming that everybody talks about associated with CO2 increases. The question is, okay, this is some sort of a theory. Is it correct or not? And I'll show you that there is a correlation between CO2 increase and global warming as we go along. So here you see that. What you see is the CO2 concentration from 1880 going up, this black line. And I've shown you the temperature, which is relative to the temperature, let's say, in a period when the CO2 concentration was relatively stable. Okay, you can see that. So in a way, the CO2 concentration started to really take off from the 50s. And partly this was due to the fact that during the war period, we were not producing as much CO2, and there was some uptake that was occurring that was more in balance with what we produce. So you see this sort of flattening, and then it suddenly takes off. But you can see that the temperatures, which are shown by the blue and the red lines, they sort of fluctuate. But in this period from about 1970, they have been steadily going up, as would be expected scientifically, due to the increased CO2 level. There's a lot of controversy as to whether this CO2 level is purely due to our use of fossil fuels and increased energy use, or due to natural causes. And probably there is a significant amount coming due to natural causes as well. As we turn forest into agricultural land, we reduce the uptake possible. So deforestation increases the CO2 levels. So it's not just burning fossil fuels. Furthermore, land use can release another greenhouse gas, which is methane. Livestock also produce methane. So there are multiple causes, but there is no question that most of the effect is coming from our use of fossil fuels for producing energy. So that is why the CO2 levels are increasing, and that's not a sustainable future. So let me show you the predictions. We are in the early part of this slide, the black line up to about 2020. But if we don't do anything and business is as usual, CO2 concentrations will increase like the red line that I've shown you there on top. If you take some actions which are not particularly strong, it can be reduced quite significantly. For example, if we switch out of coal and use more natural gas, use more nuclear and so on, you can go to the second red line, and the global temperature rise will be significantly less. Instead of being about 4 degrees by 2100, it'll be about 2 degrees. It's still very significant. The only way that we can get to the black line, which is right at the bottom there, would be to move strongly away from fossil fuels to make sure that the amount of CO2 and other greenhouse gases we are putting into the atmosphere are equal or less than the capacity of the biosphere to take it up, because the biosphere can take it up through making leaves, wood, and so on, which ultimately go into making oil and coal again. So in a sense, storing the sunlight in the biosphere in some way. So that would be more or less the black line. Even with that, we're talking of at least a 1 degree rise in temperature in a very sustainable sort of renewables-based energy future. So moving on, what is the effect of these? So one of the first effects that we've seen is that due to the global warming, the ocean surfaces are getting warmer, and this is leading to severe weather events that are occurring on the coasts. And you can see that coupled to these severe weather events, there is increased height in the sea level and in the tides. This makes many coastal establishments, industrial and power, particularly vulnerable. And the first signs we are seeing of the effect of global warming are in the coastal regions, where you're seeing many vulnerabilities in the utility industry and so on. And I can show you this more. This is for the US. It's potentially true for the whole world. You can see here on this slide, the left-hand side shows you the severe power outages that are occurring due to climate-related events. The red line plots actual frequency in the US of major power outages affecting more than 50,000 people. The red is the weather-related ones, and the blue is the non-weather related. And you can see how these outages, which are the first sign of the global warming trend, are showing up. There's an increase. Similarly, the incidence of fires without mitigation, and you know that we are getting much more in the ways of fires now due to the fact that the weather is changing. There's more arid zones forming, and you can see the increase in the fires that would occur over a period of time, and the millions of acres that would be burnt if there was no mitigation, if we went with the red scenario that I showed you in the previous slide. This is something else, which is the sea level rise. You can see that in reality, there is significant amount of sea level rise that has already occurred, even in the last 25 years. So it looks relatively small. You'll say, well, it's only 8-9 centimeters, about a third of a foot. But in global terms, this is a huge amount of sea level rise. And due to that, you get a significant effect on coastal regions that are occurring. And part of this comes from thermal expansion. I've shown you that. And part of it is coming from meltwater. So the top picture, the top line is the total sea level rise, and the components are the meltwater and the thermal expansion. So now what happens in the future if we don't take any action? We are right at the bottom there. We are higher than we used to be in the 1800s or even in the 1950s. But if the trend goes on unabated, you would get the dark red line that I've shown you, which is extreme, and you would get significant changes, a couple of meters in sea level, which would have a huge effect. Many islands would get, inundated, and we're already seeing the signs of this in places like the Maldives and so on. And if you have a low scenario, which is like the lowest scenario of temperature rise I showed you, you still would get sea level rise by 2100, but it would be perhaps manageable with adaptation. So there is not only a sustainability issue related to not using up resources for the future generations by using up fossil fuels, but also to get our use in balance so that these adverse effects of climate change and sea level rise and so on are mitigated. So there is a broader economic aspect to sustainability and the quality of life, the coastal regions and the arid zone formation and so on. So what we have seen here is that if we don't transition away from fossil fuels, we will really get to levels which are not sustainable in terms of temperature. And the main thing is not that temperature will not rise, but it's the rate at which it will rise, because over these relatively short time scales, we cannot adapt to these climate changes very easily. So the Paris Accord has set something like a 2 degrees Celsius threshold. And if you don't go there, then it can be something like a 5 degrees Celsius, which is the non-mitigated versus the mitigated. And if we do not follow this, just to summarize, the sea levels would be significantly higher, the oceans would be much more acidic, our glaciers would be more or less gone, and we would have very real effects on the propagation of arid zones, and it could even change the monsoons and things like this coming. Plus, there is one other thing that I have not mentioned yet, which is the effect on our health. The health effect can come also from burning fossil fuels, because they tend to put various pollutants into the atmosphere. And I will deal with that right at the end. So moving on, what would a sustainable energy future look like? I've not shown nuclear here, but I'm showing you 3 sources which ultimately derive from the sun. So the sunlight that we stored over millions of years, we now want to use on a human time scale. And you have the sun itself directly, the wind, which is derived from the sunlight, and the waves, which ultimately, to some extent, are derived from the wind, and some extent the tides are derived from indirectly from the moon, and so on. So these may be perhaps considered renewable resources, and they are energy that we generate over a human time scale, but we have no control, really, or very little control of when that will happen. The sun shines when it wants to, which is during the day. The wind blows. And so these are intermittent resources. And to be able to use them in a way that is useful, we need some form of storage. And I've shown you this schematically. There are various ways you can store it. You can store it in various types of fuel cells or flow batteries. You can store it in, large stationary batteries. But whatever it is, the intermittent nature of these resources give a key aspect to the storage. I've shown the electric grid sort of here monolithically, but in general, I think what you will see is the grid will break up into more local grids where you have distributed storage with distributed generation. And the transportation itself could also serve as form of storage. Eventually, transportation, which is a large form of use of oil, for example, would evolve into one which is electrically driven, hopefully from renewable sources. So ultimately, a sustainable energy future would move towards electricity usage for automobiles, whether it comes from fuel cells or from batteries, and electricity usage for other purposes, which comes also from renewables. So the whole economy in the future, in the next 100 years or so, 80 years, would transition away from fossil fuels, or at least mitigate the use of fossil fuels, to go towards a more sustainable future. So, for example, this is an example of windmills to generate wind, solar panels, which can capture sunlight to make electricity. And then these structures there, you can see, are batteries, which can store the sunlight and the wind for periods when they are not available. So this is illustrated already. We are moving in this direction, and to some extent, wind has become a significant part of the renewable mix, though solar will become more and more important as we go on. So you can see that this is, in the US, the total energy being used. The renewable part has become significant. It's about 11% already. And what you see in this 11% is some of it is traditional. Wood is still being burnt. Biofuels have been more or less steady and are still being burnt. It's mandated that a certain amount of the transportation part is ethanol, which you have to add to gasoline, so that there is some use of biofuels already. Wind has become quite significant, but a lot of the wind resources are being used up, so the growth of this for the future will be perhaps less. Hydro, pumped hydro or hydro, is significant. However, this is also reaching saturation in some ways. Solar is at very early stages, so you can expect that solar will grow very rapidly because there's a lot of excess sunlight, and particularly around the globe, there are regions where there is a lot of sunlight, which, with the low cost of conversion of the sunlight today, will more and more be used, because the way to convert it is silicon, and we have lots of sand around. So by and large, the materials to convert the sunlight into electricity are abundant as well. So that's what's happening currently. Of these truly renewable and with the possibility of growing rapidly are primarily solar and then wind. To some extent, hydro resources are being used up, and biomass is sort of, tricky, because they do put carbon dioxide into the air, eventually they consume it, but there's a lag in this process. It depends on whether you grow trees or whether you grow grass in order to do this. Moving on, let me illustrate more the intermittent nature of renewables generation. So if we want to move towards this renewable future, we need to be able to store this renewable electricity. And what you see here is that the black curve is the demand, and the sources of generation, for example, can be PV, which is solar, blue is the wind, and there could be other sources as well, and could be nuclear, fossil, and so on. Now, in order to meet this demand, though, what you have to have in regions when solar is, for example, not present in the night, for example, here there's no solar, you could make up this using some form of storage. I've called it batteries, but it could be, fuel cells or something else, where the excess solar that's generated here or excess wind is stored for use in the batteries. Now, that also can be illustrated more graphically here. What you see is the black line on the right-hand side, which is the use of the demand for electricity, let's say. The deep orange is the solar generation. The wind is the light, the more yellow there. And this is a record taken over a few days. You can see that during the day, you have excess solar. So this excess is shown like this, or excess solar plus wind, like this. And that gets stored in your batteries. So you can see this gray is the battery being charged. So when it goes below 0, that means the battery is being charged. And then the gray is the battery. Then during the period, when it's above 0, the battery is discharging. So when you are running only on wind and sun, you can see that there is a period when you have excess generation above the demand, which goes to charge your batteries. And then during the period when the sunlight is low, the wind is still there, you then discharge the batteries. So this is a typical sort of use of energy storage to meet demand using renewable resources. And part of this comes from the fact that we can see that the use of sunlight will grow very, very rapidly because it's readily available and the materials to convert it to electricity are readily available. This electricity can be used to drive cars eventually, for transportation, for rail lines, and so on. And so we can transition even the transportation sector to run on renewable energy. So I illustrate again here the variability. You can see solar production is there, which is not always available. At night, of course, you have none. So the usage profile, though, is you need lights when there is no sun. You may come home from work and so on. So this is a very important role for stored energy from the excess sunlight. So you can see that during this period, there's excess sunlight, which can be stored, and then it can come out during the period when there is no sunlight. What are the options to store energy? This is a very busy slide, so let me walk you through this. The main way we store energy today is pumped hydro, this blue thing here. This is about the cost of it. It's cheap in terms of stored energy in dollars per kilowatt hour. The initial capital cost is high, but it can be amortized over 30, 40, 50 years. There are dams which work. So in areas where you can use pumped hydro, it's a very good option to use. However, it also does some environmental damage, which we have to be careful about. The second option is compressed air. And there are a few establishments where compressed air is used for storage, for example, in underground caverns and so on. But this is also locationally sensitive. And then there are metal air batteries, which are used mainly as primary batteries. They have very long lives. In fact, these are used for, buoys which are out in the ocean or in remote locations. They can last for years, but they're not rechargeable. They get used up. They're inexpensive. In fact, there are major installations of these for things like rail lights and that are already there. So below this line, the costs are low, but they are not generally deployable. Above are batteries, and I can show you later on, fuel cells, which can be used more widely deployed. And there are various types of batteries. The most important is lead acid, which is widely used, but lead has some toxic issues which make it less attractive and to be very widely used. And it has some limitations in durability, cost, and so on, certainly more expensive than pumped hydro. And then there's lithium ion. So these are the two main types of batteries which are currently used. Lithium ion is very expensive, though the price is coming down. It's really mainly used for storage for your personal electronics, and more now there's a market for it in electric vehicles, which could be a significant way to reduce your energy use in transportation. Whether this will go into more mass transit systems or everybody will have personal transportation, it's hard to foresee the future. Nickel cadmium and these other types of batteries are very specialized. They're not used very much. But the main message coming from here is that in order for us to meet the challenge for the future, we have to bring these batteries, fuel cells, and so on down to the cost of pumped hydro in order to go for an economic sort of future. And there are other types of batteries now being developed, which will also have lower costs. Flywheels and so on are pretty specialized, maybe to sort out frequency fluctuations, and similarly with the capacitors here. They're not, something that can be used for mass storage. So moving on, what are the materials that can be used very effectively to store energy? And I've taken 3 of the metals which can be the currency for an energy future. Lithium, lead are well developed. Zinc is very widely used already for your primary batteries, the batteries that you use. You don't recharge them, but the AA's, the AAA's, you use them in your flashlights and so on. And a larger version of those could be used for storage as well. It's by far the most economic material to use theoretically compared to, say, lithium or lead. This is the cost in millions of dollars to store one Niagara Falls hydroelectric plant over a day. So you really want to be able to recharge these and get eventually to a rechargeable system in order to utilize these metals effectively. But shows you in broad terms that it's not out of the question. Niagara Falls, after all, can supply 20% of the electricity needed by New York State. So it's a vast resource, 60,000 megawatt hours per day. And you can store it in about an 18-meter cube of zinc. So in theory, these are effective materials. And zinc is non-toxic. It's doesn't take all that disruptive for mining and recycling. So there are attractive aspects to this. How does these batteries work? Well, before doing that, I want to show you that in the long term, it's likely to be some form of electrochemical energy storage that we are going to use because they are readily deployable and distributed. They're not location sensitive like hydro and the compressed air storages. And they can be put in cities, they can be put in homes, and so on. So there's broadly two types of cells. One is what I call electrolysis cells. These are cells which form a material like hydrogen or something from, say, water. And you can burn the hydrogen, you can add it to some natural gas, for example, to increase its calorific value, but reduce its carbon dioxide footprint, and or directly burn the hydrogen, and you can produce power without producing CO2. The second category are power cells, and there are two types. One is so-called batteries, and the batteries store energy electrochemically and release it through a redox reaction. There is a cathode, for example, there's an anode, and the reactions occur here. And what you transfer between the anode and cathode are ions, but you do not transfer electrons. The electrons go this way, and they can make a current. So during charging, you reverse an electrochemical reaction, a redox reaction, store the energy in a chemical form, and then during discharge, this energy comes out. So I'll illustrate this with zinc and manganese dioxide, which is the materials in your primary cells that you use in flashlights and so on, in a later slide. So batteries can be made rechargeable. They're very efficient. They convert electricity to chemical energy and back with an overall energy efficiency of over 90%. Very effective. For example, lithium-ion batteries can operate almost at 95% efficiency. Zinc manganese dioxide is close to 90%, and even lead acid, if they're well treated, around 80%. Now, fuel cells are different. They really are a form of burning the fuel, but doing it in a controlled way. And they typically will use hydrogen, which will be combined with oxygen from the air to make water, and they will produce electricity in that process. But the round trip efficiency, electricity to electricity, of a fuel cell will inevitably be lower because it's like a Carnot engine. So you'll see this in a moment. So here I show you typically a lithium-ion battery. I don't want to go through the details. I've shown you some of the reactions, and you can see that during discharge, in the anode, an electron is produced here, and during charge, an electron is used in this reaction in the cathode, okay? So, it's a way to transfer electrons back and forth. What happens is lithium is stored in the anode here. I've shown it graphically here. And it goes through the separator, which only transfers, remember, ions, does not transfer electrons. And in this case, the cathode is made out of cobalt oxide. The lithium intercalates into this, as I've shown you there on the right-hand side. And there's a chemical reaction of the type that I've shown you here. And by lithium shuttling back and forth, a little bit like a shuttlecock, during charge and discharge, you can use electrons to charge the battery and store energy, and then you can release the electrons to when it discharges, and do it very efficiently. In fact, these batteries have typically voltages over 3.5 volts. They're very energy dense, and they're really interesting for transportation currently. However, cobalt and lithium are expensive. So for a widespread grid use, they're less attractive than some other ways of doing things. Let me show you what a fuel cell does, because it's also a competitor for lithium-ion batteries for transportation. Fuel cell takes hydrogen and oxygen from the air, and it recombines them and produces electricity. And this really is a way of combustion. Think of it that way, except it directly produces electrons. It doesn't have to go through a generator. And what produced is water, which is then exhausted. But it also is limited by being essentially a Carnot engine, because it is a form of a combustion process. So if you compare, say, hydrogen used in fuel cells versus batteries for transportation use, which is one of the major uses which produce carbon dioxide, as I showed you in the early slide, the overall round trip efficiency of using hydrogen is relatively low. It's because you first have to electrolyze water, make the hydrogen, then recombine it in a fuel cell, or you can, of course, run a turbine. It doesn't really matter. It has good energy density, but the overall round trip efficiency is fairly low, around 35%. On the other hand, if you use a lithium-ion battery or some form of a lithium battery, you can charge it up and discharge it. And I've sort of taken into account losses and things in this process. The round trip efficiency may be about 85%. And it can sort of capitalize on the existing electricity distribution infrastructure. Whereas to do this, you'd have to build a hydrogen distribution infrastructure if you wanted to charge cars and things with it. The disadvantage compared to the hydrogen of using, say, something like lithium is that the energy density is significantly lower. So the range of your car or your transportation would be significantly higher with a fuel cell because it's easier to store. The hydrogen is very energy dense. And so if you compress it and store it, you get more range. But the trade-off is that you use about 2.5 times more electricity from renewable sources. Let's say the electricity came from that, in order to be able to use this longer range, hydrogen type of situation. And for this reason, batteries, by and large, are preferred, if you like, to be the energy storage media, which is widely deployed, than fuel cells because of this round trip efficiency effect, whether this is for grids and so on. However, it could be that the cost of batteries is significantly higher than the cost of fuel cells. So there are economic considerations as well, other than round trip efficiencies. So I'm going to show you here a lower cost. I promised to show you how your battery in your little AA, AAA, or C cell works. They can also be made rechargeable, and they work by the reactions I'm showing you here, which is on the left-hand side is the anode, which is typically zinc. It forms zinc hydroxide by absorbing a hydroxyl ion. So instead of having the lithium shuttle back and forth between the anode and the cathode, you have a hydroxyl ion that shuttles back and forth here. And on the left-hand side, during discharge, the zinc will be zinc metal forming zinc hydroxide, which can go into solution in the electrolyte if one wishes. And there are really two electrons here, not the one electron that is produced in the lithium I showed you before. So this is a multivalent reaction, which gives it a better energy density. It actually produces about 800 milliamp hours per gram, which is about twice what you get from a single valent. There's Faraday's law here. And similarly, the manganese dioxide can give you a 2-electron reaction. So by and large, this is what is used in your primary batteries because it's very cheap, these materials, compared to lithium. However, they are very difficult to make rechargeable. So one of the challenges that we face is to take this cheap chemistry and make it completely rechargeable. So as we go forward, this is one of the major areas that the Department of Energy in the US is trying to move towards for grid scale storage, to go to low cost, materials to store energy. For transportation, clearly weight is very important. So even though lithium and cobalt could be more expensive, there is a practical aspect to this. So let me move on. Here are the forecasts for grid energy storage. This is from a very good source, Bloomberg's new energy forecast that they do every year. I've only shown you this till about the middle of the century, but you can see that a gigawatt there is 1,000 megawatts. So when you look at 1,200 gigawatts, it's like 1,200 1,000 megawatt plants. So let's say if a nuclear plant was 1,000 megawatts, this is 1,200 nuclear plants, to put it in so that's the forecast that the Bloomberg is making for use of batteries for grid energy storage, because ultimately you have to store the energy in order to be able to use renewables. And you can see that India is very significant here. You can see this line there. This part is India. This larger one is China. Okay, you can see. And actually the US is, because we can see larger deployments being needed in India and China, is of the same order or even a little bit less than India. So India, because it has such a important potential use of solar energy in particular, would really have a big need for this type of storage that we're talking about going forward. This shows you the world, if you wish, and I've divided this up into different sources of energy. The yellow is solar. You can see that solar initially is very small compared to wind, But wind tends, this is wind and this is solar. Wind tends to stay about the same as you go forward. Here's a break, and this we're going to 2100, the forecast anyway. If you go into a sustainable, renewable-based economy, the vast majority of the resource is likely to be photovoltaic solar. First, because the materials are relatively inexpensive. After all, it's silicon, and silicon is very widely available. So this is really primarily photovoltaics. There's some solar thermal, significant, of course. And of course, there is a significant amount of nuclear. But what you really see is the use of fossil fuels significantly going down. It doesn't go to zero. There'll still be usage for it, but it's more sustainable, and it is up to the capabilities of the biosphere to be able to take it up. So what is the effect of this sort of sustainable energy future? Here are the predictions of the ICC. If business was as usual, you can see that you would get warming in the gray on top, which would be around 4 to 5 degrees, which is very high for the globe. And that's clearly unsustainable. And that is not something that we can do. And we have to take some action fairly rapidly. If we meet the pledges and targets in the Paris Accord, which hopefully the countries will try to do, we can be in this blue region. It's still fairly high, a little bit too high. So there's been a lot of interest in what are called net zero targets for carbon. The new American administration, the Biden administration, has set a net zero target for the power industry within 2035, and overall net zero by 2050, which will have a significant effect if it is done. And if other countries follow, which by and large, there is an accord that they should do. If we can move to a completely renewable economy, and the scenario I showed you earlier, then you can actually reduce it significantly and limit the change to about 1.5 degrees Celsius, which is really pretty good. But you would have to reduce greenhouse gas emissions to essentially zero. The reason it can go negative is the globe can actually take up greenhouse gas into the oceans and so on. So, you can also use carbon capture and so on. So that's a very optimistic scenario. I think net zero is a more likely to be a possibly sustainable future. So the last thing I wanted to show you is the effect of this, not just on warming and climate, which of course has very significant effects, but some direct effects on health. Because use of fossil fuels, which is clearly unsustainable in many ways from the use of resources, it generates certain pollutants and particulate matter, which has significant health effects. And what I wanted to show you here was the very important effect it has in India. This is coming out of a recent study published in Nature by some researchers in Europe. What you see here is that due to the pollution and particulate matter and so on, that this is life years per year, and this is the health impacts on your population, India actually is one of the major uh, regions in which you can see this blue area is India, has a very significant health impact due to the pollution associated with fossil fuel use. Now, this, of course, is taking into account that we changed and move out of fossil fuels. So this is looking at a carbon mitigation scenario, but even then, the effect is very significant, and it's not realized how important this decarbonization is to health as well. So I think that's my last slide. And with that, I will stop and I'm happy to take questions from you then. So I hope I haven't put everybody to sleep. It's late at night there. So Swamiji, I'm ready if you wish to take some questions. Can everybody hear me?
Yes, Sanjay.
Yes.
This is really excellent, wonderful. Such a vast and also difficult topic, you made it so lucidly. Felt very interesting. Anyone from the participants? Any question? One question I have seen. You can also. I think you can also see. It is in the chat box. That is why we use lithium ion. You got this in the chat box?
I am looking for the chat box. I'm not very expert at
Okay. Let me read it out. Why we use lithium-ion batteries in vehicles? Can we have other types of batteries? Lithium ions are much more costly. Is there any other type of batteries used in vehicles? I think the presentation itself, there are some light. I mean, you have discussed a lot of other type of batteries, isn't it?
Yes.
And
I think it's a very good question.
Yes.
I think currently the reason lithium ion is going to be used initially is it's lightweight, so
yes.
even though it has other disadvantages, it has lightweight and it has good life. It's expensive, and we have no current replacement, easy replacement for lithium ion currently, other than fuel cells. So the two directions, because of the energy density, lithium ion is the most energy dense of the batteries. That's the main reason right now. I think in 20, 30 years, they will find other batteries which will be equally light. Maybe they'll be based on aluminum or zinc or magnesium, but they're not developed to that extent where they can be used. So I would say it's a stopgap measure, but it's a very good question. Yeah.
Yes.
I think it's more based on the
You have one question?
lightness of the battery.
Our Secretary of the Institute, Dr. Biswas, earlier he was in NERI, National Environmental Engineering Research Institute of Government of India. So, Dr. Biswas, please put your question.
No, my question is very simple. This whether technically, definitely it is sustainable, but whether eco-friendly or not.
Which one?
Oh, no, I think it's a good
Battery.
question.
I am talking about battery only. Eco-friendly or not?
Yeah, I think it's a good question because of the recycling of these batteries, whether it's ecologically good or not. So it's a open question because the recycling of lead is good, but there's always a little bit of leakage, and then there is also great difficulty in impressing the recycling because there is the informal sector that tries to recycle it. So
Yes.
it causes a lot of deaths and defects,
Contamination.
all sorts of problems with
Yes.
lead. So in theory, it can be done well, but in practice, it's an ecological disaster. I'm being very honest. It's not good. And there, lithium, the recycling of, I'm giving you the main types of batteries. The recycling of lithium has not been well developed yet. So the recycling of lithium in principle can be done well, but it has heavy metals like cobalt in the cathode, which they're trying to reduce. It will also have some nickel in the cathodes, which less toxic, but and then it has manganese, which is not toxic. The primary batteries, which they are trying to make rechargeable, zinc and manganese dioxide are the least toxic. They can be put into the environment. They are landfilled currently, and they can be recycled as well. But the recycling processes are not extremely well developed because they are so inexpensive that people just dispose of them into landfills, So ultimately, though, if you come to the very vast deployments that we're talking about, a lot of attention is being paid to recycling and the ecological impact of these the recycling plants. The recycling of the lead is the most developed, but it's also the least followed and therefore the most dangerous. The recycling of lithium is developing. The heavy metal part of it is significant. We need to be able to capture that. Zinc and manganese dioxide is easier, but it's not widely practiced because the materials are so cheap that people don't want to recycle them. So in all three areas, there's problems. So it's a very good question, ecologically. I would focus more on the recycling aspect. It has to be improved.
Thank you. 2005 আমি একটু পরে দিচ্ছি ঠিক আছে হ্যালো হ্যাঁ ঠিক আছে
Any other questions?
I don't think any other question is there. Actually, Sanjay, just our 12th January, we have Swami Vivekananda's birthday. So we are inviting all participants and the resource persons to come and join physically if it is possible. Then we will felicitate the resource persons. But I think for your case, it is just some announcement because we cannot do. I mean, we cannot meet physically. Okay. But I hope you have seen the Swami Vivekananda's picture.
Yes,
Just
I saw behind you, of course.
Yes, that is our institute, that is our organization. So that is a case. Okay. So
so after,
really, yes, please.
After COVID, I will visit you.
Yes, surely, please let me know. Then we can have some good programs. We have a lot of philanthropic other type of activities. I will show you those things. Okay. Thank you very much. And then, yes. But we enjoyed your presentation very much.
Yeah, I will send you the slides. They're a little big.
Yes. Then send it to my mail. Okay.
Yeah,
please.
I'll send it.
Please.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay. Bye.
Good night.
Good night.
For you and
good night for us. Good morning for you. Okay. Bye.
Thank you. Okay. Bye.
So the participants, let us close it here because is it not?
Yeah. Okay.
Okay.
I'm leaving.
Yes,
Okay.
yes, I am also.
Thank you.